Alright, this is John Cole with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and today I'm coming at you from my backyard garden. As you guys can see, my winter garden is growing up to speed, doing really well. These are all my over 100 different heirloom lettuce plants, most of them which are red colored or have a red tinge to them, which means they're more nutritious than the standard green counterparts. Plus, these are all open head varieties. You guys can see, you know, the more open the head, the more the sun is hitting the leaf, the more the leaf is generating some beneficial phytochemicals you guys could eat. Anyways, in today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and share with you guys a presentation I gave in Florida, like over 2 hours long. So I'm warning you guys in advance. You know, I put these videos up. You guys can complain about the time. You guys don't have to watch this video if it's too long for you. I mean, I like to put these videos up because I feel I share valuable information that can change your life. And if you watch this 2 hour long video and you just get one thing that you could start implementing in your life today, it could set your life's path on a whole different direction. It could allow you to be healthier, for example. You know, it could maybe have you change careers or have you do things to improve your relationship. I don't know. I give all kinds of, you know, things in my talk, lessons in my talk, or my journey in my talk, where you could learn a lot of different things from. For those of you guys that don't have the time, be sure to check in the corner of the YouTube video you're watching right now. There'll be a little gear spoke. You could actually click that gear spoke. One of the things is the speed you could play this video. So if you guys could understand me now, you know, likely you'd be able to understand me at 2 times speed when I talk this fast, right? And then you could like cut down the time that it takes you guys to watch this video in half the time. And if this is one of my too long videos for you guys, that's alright, I understand. Wait for the next one. It's definitely going to be shorter, but not going to be packed with all this information. You know, I think it's rare these days that a lot of YouTubers that do a lot of instruction and teaching online, and actually just YouTube videos in general, tend to be really short. You know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, some maybe only 3 minutes, and they tell you what to do, but they don't really give you the story and the backstory on why. So, and I kind of feel like, personally, like if you just are told this, you may not take action on the thing, or on the thing being you're taught, because you don't have any backstory and you don't have a good reason to do it. So that's why I like to put out, you know, the longer content videos for you guys to share, you know, more of the backstory, which will hopefully give you more of a backbone to make the changes in your life that you guys need to. In this episode, what I'm going to do is actually share with you guys why I got so into gardening, growing my own food, as well as just my journey into getting healthier and actually why I started. I have other videos online where I've talked about my story, maybe in a more compressed 10-minute, 15-minute format, but this is pretty much the whole thing. I might leave out a few details, but this is a pretty comprehensive talk on, you know, my background and why I do the things I do now. Any case, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this presentation. All right. Thanks for coming out tonight. I don't like mics. All right. So can everybody hear me? All right. I'm not going to use a mic tonight. They absolutely suck. We're going to turn them off. All right. So today, you guys, how many of you guys have watched some of my YouTube videos before? All right. So maybe like half of you guys, approximately. So that's good. Half of you guys kind of know who I am, and the other half does not know who I am. So of the people that are here, because some of you guys may know me, some of you guys may not know me, I'd like to get to know you guys a little bit, and I'd love to go around to each and everybody and have you talk about your name and what you do and all this stuff. But I don't have time for that tonight. But just so I know kind of where my audience is at, so I can maybe tailor my talk tonight for you guys. And what you guys came out for is, how many of you guys are interested in like eating healthier? So like that's a lot of people, almost everybody. How many people are interested in the raw plant-based diet? So it's going to be like about half. And how many people are interested in gardening and growing food? I see. So yeah, so I could see that, yeah, people are all interested in growing food mostly, and of course eating healthy is also really important to many people. So I think what I'm going to do tonight is, since I've been filming like a ton of videos since I've been here, like yesterday I filmed 3 videos, today on my drive up here I filmed 1, the day before that I filmed 2. They'll all be online at growingyourgreens.com, so if you really want to learn about gardening, As much as I could give a talk and try to enlighten you in just a short amount of time, I don't even know, thousands of hours of free content available on YouTube. I have over 1,200 videos teaching you guys how to grow your own food. And many of my videos now, probably at least 24, including the 6 that I just did in the last couple days, and I'm still going to do a couple more while I'm in town. I have many videos on growing specifically in South Florida. You know, if your cucumbers died or you can't start seeds, you know, you have to do certain practices and follow advice from people that are doing it successfully in your climate. I mean, I grow in Las Vegas, so I know how to grow successfully in Las Vegas. I don't live in South Florida. Maybe one day I might, because me and my girlfriend are going to move somewhere tropical. You might end up in Hawaii. But nonetheless, growing in Hawaii and South Florida is a lot more similar to then growing in Las Vegas and South Florida. So I would recommend and encourage you to go to my YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens, and just there's a little search box thing. If you just click the little magnifying glass, and you could search for South Florida or just search for Florida. And all my videos that I ever made in Florida will come up, where I actually visit really cool people's houses and demonstrations. I visited actually Annette here. She has 5 acres in Punta Gorda, and I visited her farm today. And she learned gardening from YouTube videos, including a lot of mine and other people's. And she hasn't ever taken any kind of courses or nothing like that. And all you guys could do it too, but she's dedicated. She's worked every day for the last 3 years on her 5-acre property, clearing it, wood chipping it, and I was out there today. It was an amazing place. And she has a lot of good practices that I'll share in my videos. And that's really the value of what I do. I think, you know, I mean, I'm valuable to you as a person because I've visited all these places. I have all the information on what people are doing that's successful, but more importantly, I get to actually show you in my videos, you know, examples of what to do and plants to grow in your specific climate. So that's the first thing I like to say. The next thing I like to do tonight is actually just basically tell you some stories. That's always fun for me, to relax and just kind of tell stories. And basically the story that I'm going to tell you is not like my whole life story, but how the reason why I got into growing my food and the reason why I'm so passionate about growing my food. And that'll kind of give you a better insight about me and what I do, and also along the way, I'm going to try to share and include some of the things that have really helped me a lot. As much as going to the seminar or the classes that the gentleman that was speaking before me, you could learn all about this stuff. I'm just going to try to sum up some of the main points that were important to me and some of the things I've learned along my journey, because that's all it is. This is just my journey about health, my journey about growing foods, and I like to just share what I've learned so that you don't have to go through the school of hard knocks like I did. I've tried a lot of things, whether that's in gardening or whether that's in life, and some things worked and some things don't work. And even if I fail at doing something, I've succeeded because I successfully have learned what not to do or maybe what route not to take. And every day we wake up, we have choices, and you could go this direction or you could go that direction. And as a plane takes off from California to go to Hawaii, most of the time it's off course, but it always gets back on course because a wind will pull it and this and that. And it always ends up in Hawaii if that's its goal. So, I think goal setting is very important. So anyways, I have some points that I want to cover. I usually be able to hit my points without actually looking at any kind of cheat sheets because I make videos every day, and this is kind of what I do. I just talk to the camera instead of talking to an audience of 50 or more people. And don't worry, I'm going to try to save time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions, please write them down as I go along, and then raise your hand at the end. I'll call and take questions, so I'll answer everybody instead of trying to interrupt in the middle of my presentation. I think, and also I would remind everybody, encourage everybody to check your cell phone and turn it off so it doesn't ring and interrupt anything. That being said, while I'm speaking on cell phones, I do have a cell phone, but it's always in the Wi-Fi mode or the airplane mode. So I have the cell service turned off, and I encourage everybody to turn off your cell phone as much as possible. Because I had a friend recently, it's been publicly announced, Dr. Jameith Sheridan, for those of you guys that know, or knew Jameith, he lost his life, and it's probably because he had a cell phone here and a cell phone here that he'd carry around all the time when he was running all his businesses, and he got kidney cancer, even though he was a raw foodist and ate really high nutrient-dense stuff. Just because you're a raw foodist or eat healthy doesn't mean you're immune to all the toxins in the world, including the cell phone. So I want to really encourage people to minimally use their cell phone and only in emergencies and whatnot. I know so many people are tied to it, but I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to values. Do you value connecting and being able to get hold of so you can make your multi-million-dollar business deals, or chatting with your wife that you're going to be home in 10 minutes, or do you value your health and being around for a longer period of time. And I mean, our lives are full of choices, and I just try to make choices that will benefit me, and also I try to make choices based on my values and what is important to me. And one of the things that I learned at a young age to value is your health. Your health is your greatest wealth, and this is what I learned when I was in my 20s, thankfully enough. At the time, it wasn't maybe the best situation to be in, but I'm glad, and looking back on it, it's one of the best things that happened to me in my life because it set me on the course that I'm on now, and it's allowed me to do what I'm doing now. So I guess with that, let's just go ahead and get into the story tonight that I want to share with you guys. So when I was born, I guess I had I was born with some certain health conditions. So when I was born and a little kid going through school, I had things such as allergies, eczema, which is like a dry skin condition. Also had ichthyosis, which is a really, really bad dry skin condition. So I'd my skin would be really dry and I'd look like a lizard. People would say I look like a lizard, and they'd make fun of me. I also had asthma. So like I couldn't be in regular PE class, and I'd like wheeze, and I couldn't breathe really, and allergies. So I had all these conditions, which back then I didn't really know what caused them. I was just kind of born with them, and that's kind of just like what it was. But later I learned that a lot of conditions such as this and many others, like nowadays there's big instances of chronic fatigue syndrome, lupus, and all these other things. These are all autoimmune conditions where your body has an overactive immune system. And I learned that basically, it's because of the external factors like your diet. So anyways, I had all these problems as a kid. The doctors would give me allergy shots. It never would make me better. I'd just keep getting allergy shots. When I would have, asthma attack, I'd have to take theophylline, have to take an inhaler. Luckily, I didn't take an inhaler too much. I always took the pills, because taking steroids is really not a good idea in my opinion, unless it's to save your life. So I took an inhaler, and they gave me these hydrocortisone creams to put on my hands, and it kind of maybe took away the itching, but it never really made my health challenges. None of these things ever made my health problems go away. It just kind of kept me hooked on these drugs to kind of give me some temporary relief, but then I would still have the problems. And I just basically, this is how I had to live, because supposedly, according to the doctors, I was born this way. And so, that went on. I learned that if I maybe ate certain things, it would maybe upset me more. Like I was allergic definitely to certain things. I was allergic to like cats, dogs, grass, pollen, all these things when I was a kid, and I couldn't like go outside. I couldn't like eat chocolate, couldn't have milk. All these crazy things. And so it was kind of rough being a kid. Anyways, I grew up. Ended up growing up all right. I went through college, and then what happened to me, and through college I thought I ate pretty healthy, because like at that time I probably stopped eating red meat because I knew that wasn't maybe the best for me. And I kind of read my ingredient labels, and like most people think, oh yeah, I eat healthy, I don't eat red meat, I read my ingredient labels, but there's still so many different things and stuff with all these names that even if you read ingredient labels, you still consume and put into your body. So anyways, I thought I was eating healthy, and anyways, after I graduated college, I was stricken with a life-threatening illness. It was spinal meningitis, and you may see commercials on meningitis and all these things. Basically, there's a viral version and a bacterial version. I, fortunately or unfortunately at the time, got the viral version, for which there is no medical cure for. And so I remember just like, I had flu-like symptoms, and my parents had to come and take me to the hospital. And I remember just passing out. I was like in a wheelchair, throwing up and passed out when I arrived at the hospital. And the next thing I remember is waking up in the intensive care unit with like IVs stuck into me. And I was like, whoa, I don't even know where I was. And then I asked the doctor when he came in, like, doctor, when am I going to get out of here? Because my whole thought at the time was when you get sick, you go to the doctors, they make you well, and then you go home. Because that's all what happened. When we were kids, we'd have ear infections, we have a flu, we have a cough, whatever, we'd go to the doctors, they'd do something to us, give us some medicine, we'd go home, and then we'd get all right. We'd get better. So that was my whole concept and thought process on how doctors worked. And so I asked the doctor, when am I going to get out of here? And he told me the words that nobody ever wants to hear when they go to the doctors, is that you might not make it out of here alive. We have no treatment for you. And so whether you got cancer, whether you got spinal meningitis, whether you got you know, heart disease, whether you got, who knows, whatever you got, you know, basically at that point, you know, in some cases, your life is in the hands of the doctor. They may or may not be able to help you. In my case, they were not able to help me. They gave me the best care, gave me intravenous whatever fluids and nutrients, or I don't know, whatever they did. But what happened is, and what really happens in life, is that our bodies heal itself. And I could say maybe through higher powers, you know, allowed me and helped me to heal also, which is what I like to think, because I have a greater mission in life. And so, well, anyways, at that point I didn't really want to believe like what the doctors were telling me, because up to this point all the drugs and everything they were giving me never really fixed anything. They couldn't guarantee I was going to walk out of there after I had my health crisis. When I was in there, I mean, the only things I really thought about and wanted in my life was not like $1 million to buy a nice, fancy 1969 Corvette with T-tops that I really wanted when I was younger, or not to have like $1 million in the bank to like buy a really nice house, or, you know, anything. I just simply wanted my health because I was on the verge of losing it. And so this really like made me think about like the saying, your health is your greatest wealth. You know, we've often heard that, but we really don't take it to heart, because there's other things that are more important right now, and we all tend to live in the moment. Like we wanted like I don't know, we want fast food, we want all these things like right now, when we don't really think about like the future and what that's going to hold, and if we do something now in our lives, how is that going to affect our future, or even more importantly, in some instances, the planet's future. You know, they're doing all kinds of crazy things in the world, fracking and all kinds of things, and just messing up the planet like really bad, which is quite sad, because people are just more concerned about now, making money now, or whatever on their trip is. So then I really thought like, okay, John, your health is your greatest wealth. From the time you get out of if you get out of the hospital, you're going to really take it seriously. And then I thought like, well, hey, if health is my greatest wealth, why am I like slaving my life away, going to school so I could get a good job, so I could just make money, and then what do I need all this money for, when, you know, most times when you're, you know, have a job and all this stuff and you're going to make money, you're sacrificing your health, because you might go to bed too late, you might have to wake up with an alarm clock even though your body wants to sleep more, and then you're sacrificing your health for this stuff, money, that at the end of your life is really not going to do you any good, as I learned. So then I thought like, well, wait a second, man, if like money is, I'm not going to say it's not any good, but it's not as important as we're led to believe, like what's really important? And then I thought like, well, you know, just because I was raised a Catholic, I'm like, well, like help your fellow man is kind of like the saying. Like, so you could, I mean, helping other people and is probably more important than just simply making money. And if you could do both, it's not like exclusive, like, I could only help people or I could only make money. Like I tried to do a combination of both, and I was like, I prayed that if I got out of the hospital, I'm going to try to help people in this life besides just trying to make money. And at that point, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do or how I was going to do that. But luckily enough, you know, I made it out of the hospital. And upon exiting the hospital, I asked the doctor some questions. And I always encourage everybody to learn how to ask a better question, because then you'll get a better answer. So instead of saying, or saying to yourself or saying to the doctor, you know, why did this happen to me? Why did I almost lose my life? Or, I mean, whatever your story you're running in your mind, ask the doctor a better question. So I asked the doctor, so why did I end up in the hospital? And then he told me, well, you have complement immune deficiency. And I'm like, well, how can I heal that? And he's like, well, there is no cure for that. You know, we have no medical cure. So then I thought in my head, I'm like, all right, well, there's no medical cure, but I'm going to find a cure. So then when I left that, because he said, because you have this complement immune deficiency, it's basically you have a compromised immune system and a weak immune system that's more, you know, susceptible to getting diseases. So how many people of you guys in here saw the Boy in the Bubble movie, John Travolta in the 70s? Yeah, so some of the older folks. So anyways, the Boy in the Bubble movie, what it was tell like it is, man. The Boy in the Bubble movie, basically this boy had like no immune system. He had to live in this bubble his whole life, and if he got out of the bubble, he could get any disease and like instantly lose his life. And so like that's him, and then like a normal person is like, yeah, they have a pretty strong immune system. I'm probably somewhere in the middle between like the dude in the bubble and like a regular person. So that's kind of like what my situation was after I got out of the hospital. I'm like, all right, well, I'm in a compromised position, and I could think that, oh, I'm screwed, But instead I chose the thought, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how I could be healthy and build my immune system so that I don't have this situation again. And this was back around 1995. The first step of this was I saw an infomercial on TV, because at the time I wasn't really working. I was kind of living on my credit cards, even though I said I was a web developer. Yeah. But so I saw an infomercial. It was Jay Kordich, Jay the Juice Man, and it was on juicing. And in his Juice Man infomercial, he said juicing can, you could have more energy, you could build your immune system. And that's all I needed to know, because I didn't really know what I was going to do. But I heard you could build your immune system by juicing, and I'm like, darn it, I need to start juicing. So I got on the phone, and this was in the times of before Amazon Prime, 2-day shipping, and all these things. And I ordered it on the phone. They're like, it'll be there in 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? I need it like today. I need to start juicing now to change my health, to build my immune system. And they couldn't really do anything for me. So anyways, I'm like, okay, that's going to be there in 2 weeks, is one from the infomercial. Meanwhile, I'm going to go to Walmart and buy a juicer. So I went to Walmart, and as luck would have it, they had a centrifugal ejection juicer that was on clearance for $23.97 or something. So I brought it home, and I was starting to juice like parsley and, strawberries are the weirdest combinations. And I would remember putting the parsley in there, and it was running, and then all of a sudden it would just like, the motor would slow down, then it would actually start smoking, and then just stopped. I was like, man, he showed how to do this on the infomercial. I'm doing the same thing, and it broke. I'm like, all right, maybe this one was defective. I took it back to Walmart. As luck would have it, they had one left. I took it home, and guess what happened when I tried it? The same thing. It was an underpowered, cheap, inefficient juicer. And so that was one of my first experiences with juicing. So then after I'm like, all right, it's slowing down. Maybe like this is just a cheap juicer, and this is why this is $23. And the one on the infomercial was, I don't even know, like $200 or something insane with time payments. So anyways, I juiced lightly, and I would pretty much at that point, I just juiced carrots every day because I was like pretty broke. And carrots are like the cheapest thing. And even to this day, in some places you get non-organic carrots, 25-pound bag for like $6, which is totally insanely cheap. And despite some people might say, John, carrots have high sugar in it, right? It's still a very nutritious and good vegetable to eat. So I would just drink carrot juice every day in the morning, and then I'd have my normal lunch, and then maybe for the mid-afternoon snack I'd have more juice, and then for dinner I'd have my regular dinner. And at that point I wasn't eating red meat and trying to eat pretty healthy, but knowing what I know now, I was really eating unhealthy. So that was my first introduction. So I kept up the juicing for 6 months, which is really important because that was an easy way that I was able to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into my diet. And I didn't really know why fruits and vegetables were important, but nowadays I know why they're really, really, really super important. And I don't care if you ever turn vegan, or if you're raw vegan, or if you're paleo, or if you're just eating a standard American diet, but what I do care about is that you guys include as many fruits and vegetables in your diet as possible. These are the healthiest foods on the planet. And from what I know now, they're the most disease-preventative foods. Whether they're the sprouts and microgreens, wheatgrass, those are all great. Or whether you're eating, kale and collard greens, or Gynera procumbens, AShitaba, blueberries, purple carrots, whatever it is, any fruit and vegetable is always going to be way better than anything else money can buy. Especially at a fast food joint, and even animal products. Some people, oh, John, animal products are healthy. I'm going to say this right now about animal products. I will say that if you eat small quantities of animal products and you eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, you're not going to have any problems with animal products, right? And how much is this amount? I don't recommend eating more than 10% of your calories from any kind of animal products, and that's a small amount. So if you eat a little bit of animal products and lots of fruits and vegetables, you're going to see no negative effects according to the research from the animal products. The problem is most Americans eat animal products 3 meals a day. They have bacon and eggs for breakfast, they might have a chicken sandwich for lunch, and a hamburger for dinner. That's way too many animal products, and they're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. So I just want you guys to just focus on fruits and vegetables. And for me, juicing is the easiest way to get them in. I could take 5 pounds of carrots, which is a big bag of carrots. I could condense that down into just 4 to 5 cups of juice, depending on the juicer you're using, and now you can basically get all the nutrition from that into you. So if you're not already, I encourage everybody to just start juicing for breakfast. That's an easy way to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your diet so that you can be healthier, and that's already like almost 1/3 of the food you're eating if you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So yeah, so I was glad. Let's save your questions at the end, write them down, and I'll have a time for questions at the end. So I was glad that the juice man introduced me into that, but that was only my first step into getting healthy. My next step was when I moved back to California, because at that time actually I was living in Alabama, and I moved back to California that actually had a health food store, a health food store run by the Alvarado Street Bakery, which many of you guys may be buying their bread. They're based in, at the time, Rohnert Park. They have since moved, so that was a city that I was living in, and they would have the bakery and a health food store connected that the employee-owned company could shop at and get discounts at, and they had like fruits and vegetables, and they sold actually date paste and supplements and all just healthy stuff, and they also sold the day-old bread at a discount. And so I would go in there and just buy my produce because it was one of the cheapest places to go. And actually in the early days, I would actually go in there and buy the date paste, which is was cheaper than buying dates. And I remember just buying the date paste slabs, and it's hard to find date paste. I just cut it up because they would use it in the recipes, baking the bread. I'd cut up the date paste slabs and just slather on the nut butter, man, and eat it. I'm like, I'm raw. No. But anyways, after the juicing, kind of getting ahead of myself, after the juicing, I learned about colon cleansing. So there was a book at this health food store on the bottom shelf called Cleanse and Purify Thyself by Dr. Richard Anderson. And this is another, I believe, essential part of my health journey or my life's journey. So I picked up the book in the store and I started reading it. And I hadn't read a book since college because I'm not a big reader. But this book really captivated me and sucked me in. And I almost read probably a quarter of the book sitting in the store. And I'm like, man, John, if you're going to sit here for a half hour, read the book, you might as well just buy it. It's like $8 or something. So I bought it and took it home and read it. And basically in the book, he talks about how your colon could get toxic and full of the mucoid plaque and sludge and all this kind of stuff, and how death begins in the colon. And he also had a lot of testimonials from people. One of the testimonials was having to do with psoriasis, which is a skin condition that's not exactly the same, but similar to eczema, which is a skin condition I had, that the doctors always try to give me creams for and all these things, and nothing ever helped. At a dermatologist, he would say, use this Eucerin cream with sea salt and scrub that in, and nothing ever helped my dry skin condition. So when I saw this in the book, I was like, wow, this guy's skin condition was changed because of this cleanse. And also in the book, he says, oh, you need to do this cleanse because it'll build your immune system. So then once I saw that, I'm like, you know what, John, you got a weak immune system, supposedly according to the doctors. I better go on this to build my immune system, clean out my colon, and maybe it'll even help my skin condition. So then I went on the program, and the program was taking psyllium, bentonite, herbal chomper, and these other little herbs and chlorophyll and things. And I didn't read in the book where it said while you're doing this cleanse, sometimes you could actually eat food. A different part of the cleanse says you could actually drink juices. But what I did instead was I just took the herbs and the bentonite and the psyllium and just water. So that was a really hardcore cleanse. And I don't know why I did that, because I don't know why I didn't read the other parts that made the cleanse a little bit easier. But I just went for it hardcore, and I kept it up. Every 1.5 hours, you have to actually take something, shake up a shake, or take some herbs or whatever. And I just did this for a week. And at the end of the week, I remember just taking a shower at the house I was renting, and I just took a shower and was looking at my body, and my whole skin condition that I had as a child 100% cleared up. And I started crying in the shower because I don't know if I was so happy because my skin condition cleared up, or I don't know if I was so scared because in the book he says, if you're going to do this cleanse, you have to go on a raw food diet for the rest of your life, otherwise you're going to get toxic again. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to do this crazy raw food diet, or I'm so happy that my skin condition cleared up. But then after that happened, I'm like, well, I better go on this raw foods diet for the rest of my life, because this is maybe the healthiest way to live, and that's what the guy said, and he helped me clear up my skin condition. And also the juice man, I didn't mention this, but the juice man with the juicer, and this kind of dates me, but with the juicer, he gives you 6 cassette tapes that you could listen to. And on the first cassette tape, he said something that I didn't really want to acknowledge or even accept at the time. He says, the one thing that prematurely ages you faster than anything else is cooked foods. Don't put cooked foods in your body. And when I heard that from the juice man, that was 6 months prior, I hit the stop on the cassette player, and I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this rhetoric. That's BS. Everybody I know eats cooked foods. There's nobody that just only eats raw foods. And I learned the 4 food groups in grade school, and I've never heard that. I'm not going to do that stuff. Then 6 months later, after I had been juicing for a while, now I went on this cleanse, and now I'm turning into a raw foodist, and that's what I decided to do for the rest of my life. a little bit after that time, I learned about this guy named Tony Robbins, who also had infomercials on TV selling his product, Personal Power, which I got into. And Tony also promoted, alkaline-rich diet, or eating, real plant foods. And also he taught me a lot of other concepts, one of which I want to share with you guys tonight, because he taught me a lot of things, but one of which is called CANI, C-A-N-I. It stands for Constant and Never-Ending Improvement. And this is basically, this is basically what, after we bombed, I learned this also in business classes when I went to college, because I went to college actually for marketing, have a degree in business marketing. But we sent this guy Deming over to Japan after we bombed him, and part of his job was to help Japan rebuild and become stronger after we just massacred them. But some of the concepts he taught the businesses over there was this CANI principle. And he taught companies like Sony and Toyota and Honda to basically even if you make a car or a Walkman or whatever, how could you do it a little bit better? How could you improve that Walkman? How could you improve that car to make it more efficient, more user-friendly, or whatever it is? And this is technology that Japan still uses to this day to produce Toyotas and Hondas that last 200,000 miles without the engine blowing up like American cars. And Americans, didn't accept this whole CANI thing. And, the American cars are still, I think, crappy. That's my personal opinion. And meanwhile, Japan have adopted this, and I have a friend actually in Alabama. Now they make Japanese cars here in Alabama or whatever. He works for a division of Honda, where, he told me about some of the processes they go through to actually, make the trunk lids better and have multiple suppliers for trunk lids in case one supplier breaks down. It's just improving their overall process. Well, anyways, knowing about this from business, and then that Tony talked about how you could always improve your life, whether that's with your relationships, whether that's with business, whether that's with making money, but I applied it to my diet and my health. So even though I started a raw foods diet back in 1995, all along my journey, I've always asked myself the question, once again, asking yourself better questions, John, how could you improve your raw foods diet that you're doing? Because back then, there's maybe Gabriel Cousens' books, Victoria Klavinska's books, and Wigmore books, but you couldn't get a lot of information on raw foods back in 1995 when I started. So luckily there was a raw food support group in my area, SF Life, or Living Foods Enthusiasts, that I would go to, and I met a lot of people there, learned a lot of different things along the way. And basically when I learn anything, I kind of think about it, and sometimes I might implement whatever they teach me, and then I'll see if it works or not. If it works for me, then I'll keep that practice. And if not, then I'll throw it away and I'll search for something else. And that's what I've done in gardening too. In gardening and in life, just try different things, see what works, and keep moving on. So one of the things, I got to share this, one of the things I learned at the SF Life is from a lady named Jasmine Clower. And she taught me that the best way to evacuate your bowels, or to take a dump, is to squat. And that's the most natural way. To sit down on the toilet like we do, it really kinks our bowels, and it's not a good thing. So, squatting is just the best way to go to the bathroom. So I have Jasmine Clower to thank for that. It is kind of popular, but still not really. And if you don't want to squat on the toilet seat like I do, which can be dangerous because you got to balance yourself, and some toilet seats I've bounced on, man, they're just hanging on with one thing, and it's holy shit, I fell or something almost. But then I got good balance because I squat always, and it actually also makes your muscles in your legs stronger when you got to do that. If you don't want to be playing risky like that, plus I'm a germaphobe, so I don't like to sit on public toilet seats anyways. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. But you can get this thing called the squatty potty, so at least it raises up your feet for your home toilet so that it puts you more in a squatting position so you can evacuate easier. But anyways, I've learned a lot of different things along my journey. And even though I was already eating a raw foods diet, I wanted to learn how I could dial in and key in and do a better raw foods diet than just the information that I learned from a few Ann Wigmore books. And back then, my diet tended to be a lot of nuts and seeds and greens and things, and maybe some people say fruit's bad, some people say fruit's good, and all this stuff. And I learned about natural hygiene, and then I would just try different things until I basically took little components of all the different people with conflicting information and just kind of made it my own. So I eat some fruit. Fruit's good. Fruit's definitely a good, positive, healing food. And of course, for each person, you may need a higher level of fruit or a lower level of fruit. I always say that especially a lot of fruit eaters, they tend to lack on the green vegetable consumption. And I encourage everybody to eat lots of greens. My goal every day is to eat 2 pounds of leafy greens a day. You know, I could easily take a pound of greens and juice it in my juicer if I'm at home and I have a full garden full of greens that it's just free and high quality. So I could easily do that. 1 pound of greens turns into just 1 cup of juice, or 8 ounces, which is nothing. Or I could blend, like lately I travel with a blender. I've been blending up my greens every night to drink a blended salad at night. And so anyways, along my journey I've learned how to basically improve what I'm doing and make it better to include more fruits and vegetables. And so I thought I was doing pretty good when I would be shopping like at, you know, the grocery store and buying organic produce, because hey, organic produce, man, that's the best money you could buy, right? And then I learned more and met other people, such as my friend Don Weaver, who always talks about this stuff called rock dust. And he's like really into his rock dust, and I have interviews with Don on my YouTube channel. But I never really okay, rock dust, you got to grow your own food. Like, I never really thought like it was really that important until one day when like I met him at an event and he had some homegrown rock dust food, and I tasted it, and I'm like, wow, this tastes really amazing. I forget what it actually was. And I'm like, maybe this rock dust stuff has something to it, right? So then basically, instead of like buying organic food, which I've since learned is highly depleted, even organic food is, I mean, it's not being grown for its nutrition, it's being grown for money. I mean, our whole economic system is grown for and made for producing a profit. And so farmers, as much as there are organic standards, you know, they grow things according to the organic standards, which is definitely better than conventional foods, which are sprayed with pesticides and bad things, and hopefully your organic food is not sprayed with those things. But still, it's lacking. And so then I thought, well, maybe if I go to the farmers markets, so then I go to my local farmers markets. And in California, farmers markets are abundant. You know, there are places I've traveled, it's been a little more difficult to go to farmers markets and find local grown food. And so sometimes farmers are doing really good practices, but more often than not, unfortunately, you know, they're in it to make a buck also. And at least that food has not been picked and shipped across the country, you know, like here in Florida, but I lived in California, so luckily things don't travel as long. But I'm like, John, how could you do this better? You know, and that's how I really got into growing my food and passionate about growing food. I'm like, man, if you want the best food, because I'm already eating the best diet, which is a diet of raw foods and fruits, fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, how can I improve my diet more? Well, that's by growing my own food, which I could have higher quality food than what money could buy, whether that's organic or at the farmer's market. And the sad thing is, one time I went to a farmer's market in Sebastopol, California. I brought my Brix tester, which tests like if the food quality is good or not good. It's just a general guideline. And this guy that like, actually he's a veganic farmer, so he grows like all different kinds of stuff, but mainly he focuses on peaches and whatnot. He grows his peaches with rock dust. He's a veganic farmer, and he had sample peaches. And then another guy that was actually not certified organic, but he doesn't spray, had his peaches. So I sampled both of them, and guess which one had a higher Brix value? The guy that didn't use the rock dust and didn't grow veganically had a higher Brix value. So those are the peaches I bought that day, even though he didn't spray, but he wasn't certified organic, because those were a higher Brix value. They also have more nutrition, higher protein content, all this kind of stuff. And they taste better, of course. And like I like my food to taste good. It's very important. So then I figured, man, I've got to grow my own food. And that's when I got onto the journey of just really starting to convert my whole front yard into growing food. I've been growing food since I owned my house, maybe like in 1999 or so. And that's when I started my gardening channel, you know, or around then or something, a little bit after that maybe. And so I figured that's a good way to better my diet, is by growing my own food. So that's a journey that I've been on since then. And since that time, I mean, there's new things that I'm learning even, which are like different things you could add to your soil to grow higher quality food. And then besides just growing high quality food is to have more of a diversity in your diet. So grow different foods that money can't buy. So how many people in here are growing gardens currently? Or growing their own food? So I'm like, wow, that's great. So almost everybody. So I mean, I think everybody should be growing. I mean, even if you don't have 5 acres to grow all your own food, do the best you can. I'm not even at the place yet where I'm growing all my own food yet. And I mean, that's a lofty goal. You're going to need some good space to do that. But everybody could grow a good portion of their food, especially some of the most important foods to grow. Let's see, so for me, those are just simply the greens. The greens are probably the most important foods to grow, and they're the easiest ones to grow, luckily enough, as well. So let's see, what else did I want to talk about today? So yeah.
What's your favorite food to grow and to eat?
Well, save your questions for the end. We'll answer that one. So talk about can I problem with the agricultural system, farmers markets changing diet over the years, more diversity or quality. All right. So yeah, now we're getting into the part about growing your own food. So how I started and how I recommend people start growing their own food is basically controlling the environment to the best of your ability. So here in Florida, it's like you guys pretty much got sand as your soil. And that's not the best thing to grow unless you're growing certain things like coconuts that like the sandy soil. They grow on the beach and just litter the beach. And I think everybody should grow coconut palm if you got room for it. Coconuts are amazing, naturally filtered water by the tree. So anyways, to control the soil or to control your environment, I grow in raised beds. So I built simple raised beds, and then I use a special soil blend that I fill in the raised beds to have more nutritious soil. And then I grow in that soil that I filled up so I could have nutrients available in there instead of just growing in whatever soil that happens to be in my yard haphazardly. Also, the soil in your yard may have been sprayed with Roundup or using chemical fertilizers. So a simple raised bed mixture or some things that I would add to the raised bed soil are, number one, compost. And if you go to the local store, you might buy compost, but the compost you're buying at the store most of the time it's bacterial compost. That's unwritten or unsaid. And that's basically produced through bacterial breakdown of the organic matter. But there's even a more important compost than the bacterial compost is what I started out with, because since then I've learned new things. And there's a more important compost called the fungal dominated compost. And that kind can be very difficult to buy because it takes, maybe 2-3 years to produce. And most places will not invest the time to make that kind of compost because it takes more time and space. And people just want to make a buck. So then most of the time you got to do it yourself, unless you could find sources of it that's already been made in nature naturally. So they harvest some stuff out of Alaska that's already been sitting there. They just harvest it up and then bag it up and sell it. So you could buy the Alaskan humus. But that's also a very important thing to add to your raised bed mixture that I've learned in visiting some of my different travels. I visited my friends in Portland, Oregon, or in that area, Malala. And actually they just grow in wood chips. So they just brought in a bunch of wood chips on their property, let them rot down, and when the wood chips rot down, they make the fungal dominated compost, and they had dinosaur kale leaves that would cover my head. I showed this in the video that I did there. And I've never even seen dinosaur kale leaves that large. Obviously, the plant was growing more towards its genetic potential. And that's something that I learned personally as a person, right? I want to grow to my genetic potential. I'll probably never be 7 feet tall or anything, but I want surely my immune system to grow to its genetic potential so that I could be as healthy as possible. And when you're eating the wrong foods, too many animal products, processed foods, and all these things, you're impeding your body's process to grow to its genetic potential. Especially when you're not getting enough phytonutrients, phytochemicals, and more importantly, the trace minerals. Trace minerals are an essential part of what our body needs to function, and unfortunately if you're eating even organic food or conventional food from the store, you're missing out on the trace minerals, and according to what I've seen in my personal testing, you could be trace mineral deficient and not even know it, even though you know it. But it's a big widespread problem. So that's why I like to include things like seaweeds that have trace minerals, because land vegetables, unless you grow them yourself in trace mineral rich soils, you're not going to have the trace minerals that we need to thrive. So that brings me to the next thing that I like to add to my garden is called rock dust. So rock dust is basically ground up rocks, not just any old rocks, but certain rocks and certain deposits that have a spectrum of different minerals, up to 70 different minerals. Standard agriculture could use maybe 3 minerals, or they're concerned with 3 main minerals, NPK, and in some cases, other people in agriculture may be concerned with up to maybe 16 minerals. That's if you're lucky. So then you could get 3 minerals or up to 16 minerals in the food that you're buying and eating, which 16 is pretty good, but hey, there's another, 60, 50, 60 that are still unaccounted for that we still need to get somehow. So is the answer taking a Centrum? That probably doesn't have all the different trace minerals in there, and trace minerals are essential for basically reactions in your body for certain things that happen. And if you don't have them, your body is not going to be as efficient or grow to its genetic potential, and your immune system is not going to work properly, like that big dinosaur kale leaf that I saw that had the fungal activity plus also the minerals from the breakdown of the trees and whatnot that has minerals. Another way to include the trace minerals, of course, is to foil or feed the trace minerals into your garden. This is good if you're not mixing up a soil blend. You could spray on this stuff called Ocean Solution that has up to 90 different trace minerals on there, and your plants can absorb things through its leaves, much like we can absorb things through our skin. And so that's another way to raise the trace mineral content. Now, when you raise the trace mineral content in foods, you're going to notice the foods taste better, because not only do we have salt receptors and sugar receptors on our tongue, we also have trace mineral receptors. And so when I taste food that I grow, like it just, I mean, in most instances, the food I grow tastes better than anybody else's food that I ever get to taste. In some rare instances, though, there's been some places that like somebody else's food tastes better than mine, and that's cool, you know, and then I want to eat that food. But I try to have the best tasting food, and then you could verify this through what's called a Brix meter or refractometer. This actually measures the total solids, total dissolved solids in the food. So most people think of a Brix meter that measures sugar, but it also measures things like the minerals and the proteins in there. And I don't have my chart or anything today to show you guys, but basically, if you test any food, and I have videos on this topic, basically you get some of the juice from the food that you're testing, you put it on the refractometer lens, and then you look into it, and then there's a bar graph inside the refractometer, and it'll show you a number from 0 to 32. And that number is basically the total dissolved solids or nutrients in the food. The higher the Brix value corresponds with greater nutrition in the food, and the lower the Brix value is lower nutrition in general. And so, for example, grapes are one of the highest Brixing crops. Like, there's a chart that says like a good grape would be, well, they start off like poor, good, average, excellent. And there's different numbers. So on a, like I know for excellent, for grapes are like maybe like a 24, and then I'm just making up the numbers here. Maybe like a good one might be like 16, and then going down from that, like an average one could be 14, and a poor one would be 6. So luckily, you know, if you want to buy some of the highest quality food at the grocery store, usually grapes are pretty high on the Brix. But other foods like apples, I was eating some apples earlier, and like, I mean, my taste buds now are my Brix meter. I don't need a tool to tell me if the food's good or not, because I've tasted good apples, I've also tasted bad apples. But it's a good way to know if you're not familiar with this. And the reason why Brix is so important, and most people don't know this part, is because when you have a high Brix, that means your plants are healthier. When your plants are healthier, that means they're making more complex proteins. When they make more complex proteins, the more complex proteins are the proteins that bugs cannot digest. Bugs only try to digest, you know, non-fully formed proteins, which are in low Brix food. So what does this mean? This means if you have high Brix food, you're going to have a more resilient plant against bugs and disease, so that you don't actually have to spray pesticides, even if they're organic, on them. And this is how nature would work, because they're growing more towards their genetic potential. Likewise, when you have higher Brix, aside from the pest deterrents, it's creating more protein in the food, and that relates to more protein for us. So, for example, they've done testing on store-bought green beans and green beans grown under not even ideal situations, but grown in a garden using some of the methods to grow higher Brix foods. And the taste on the grocery store green beans were garbage. The taste on the garden-grown green beans were good. But then if they sent these green beans off for lab analysis on the different minerals and also the protein content. And the protein content of the homegrown or garden-grown Brix had twice as much protein in the same green beans. So if people ask you, how do you get your protein as a vegan? Well, hey, I get it in my garden-grown green beans or whatever food, because any plant food has protein in it, and it's twice as much as the stuff you're buying at the store. And furthermore, I mean, as much as everybody wants to focus on protein, protein I think is not really even, we shouldn't even focus on protein. That's focusing on the wrong topic. Somebody asks you as a vegan, where do you get your protein? Turn around and ask them, where do you get your phytochemicals that are going to prevent you getting cancer? And they're going to just be stumped. And you could say, I get mine from broccoli, I get mine from cauliflower, I get mine from kale, I get mine from, you know, microgreens. But nonetheless, because the phytonutrients I've learned are the most important things, and we want to eat really rich pigmented foods and eat different kinds of foods. But anyways, aside from the higher phytonutrients in these foods, or they're just simply called, for the plant, they're just simply called plant metabolites. And that's like where I really get to really combine what I know about health with what I know about gardening and how they really intermesh, which is really fascinating to me. And it's like, wow, these connect. And anyways, the higher Brix food will also have higher levels of the trace minerals. In some cases, I don't want to quote any specific ones, but I'm just trying to look at the bar graph in my head because I've looked at it so many times. In some cases, the trace minerals are even double, you know, the garden grown versus the store-bought ones. And you know, if we got all our nutrients from the food we ate, we wouldn't need to take supplements. Supplements are a man-made invention to supplement your deficient diet, which you're being fed de facto when you're buying the grocery store food, in my opinion. Now, taking supplements might be a good idea if you're only eating the grocery store food, but there's problems with some of the supplements out there, right? You could get overloads when you take these supplements, which are man-made created vitamins and minerals. We could get overloads of different things. I mean, there have done studies that shows taking antioxidants, vitamins in supplements are actually harmful, whereas you can't overdose from vitamins and phytonutrients from plants because our bodies have become used to that. You could overload on certain minerals like iron, which we need, but also it's a pro-oxidant. It'll age you faster if you're eating it from a supplement or from animal products. But you can't ever overdose on iron from plants. So I mean, there's so many things I've learned, and I mean, I just try to apply this to my daily life and then share as much of this as I possibly can with people over my YouTube videos. So yeah, I got the two types of compost, filling the raised bed, the rock dust, I'm jumping all around. The worm castings, also very important. Worm castings are critical, and the worm castings are only as good as what the worms are being fed. So that's a whole other topic we could get into. And so I control the soil by making a raised bed, filling it with a mixture of nutritious stuff, and then I want to encourage everybody to grow the easy things. You know, you may want cucumbers because you love cucumbers so much, but in this tropical environment, it may be a little more difficult to grow than something else. So, you know, I'd much rather grow something easy like collard greens, or probably something pretty easy to grow in this climate. Also this one, yeah, arugula, Ethiopian kale, another common vegetable that's probably really easy to grow, and then grow those and then buy your cucumbers. I mean, especially in the winter time when I'm not able to grow cucumbers, you know, I grow them in the summer. In the winter, I buy cucumbers. And, you know, I'm not there when I'm growing 100% of whatever I grow, and no matter where I end up, you know, when I'm in the tropics, you know, I might not be able to grow certain fruits that I like, so then I'm still going to travel and get some of those fruits. But just grow what you can and grow the easy things, because that'll displace and save you the money from buying other stuff. So, and especially the leafy greens, like, I come to Florida every time. Every time I go to Florida, I go to like Whole Foods and some of the other stores, and I see lettuce. And like organic lettuce is like $4 a head. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like you could grow the lettuce so easily, and instead of having to import it all the way from California and then pay $4 a head, or the other crazy thing they do out here that I just don't get is they sell it by the pound. I mean, in California, Nevada, where I'm from, like lettuce is like about $1.50 a head. You guys are paying astronomical prices. So like it just will, I mean, even in Florida, it'll pay you, you'll be making money if you grow your own food. It's just so much worth it. And I found out about this trip, this lettuce called tropical lettuce. And it grows even in the summer, even if it's super hot out. Now it doesn't taste like that wimpy lettuce that you'd buy in the store, because it has some bite to it. It's more related to a wild lettuce, but it grows throughout the summer. So I'm glad I got some seeds, and I'll be growing it when I get back to Las Vegas in the 100-degree summers, and that's going to be quite impressive. But there's plenty of easy to grow vegetables in this area. And now some of the easiest ones to grow besides the annual vegetables that we know if you moved here from the north, which many people aren't Floridian natives, if you moved here from the north, we're used to, there's a lot of vegetables that we're not used to that are from other tropical areas of the world, like Asia, for example. The perennial vegetables are the ones that I recommend everybody in this room that has a garden or has some space to plant, even if you have a balcony on your patio, in your apartment or your condo, you know, just get a container and grow some of these perennial vegetables. This is the most important thing you guys could do living in Florida, because these are the vegetables that you have to plant once, and as long as they're halfway happy, they're going to grow every day of the year, and they're going to produce food for you. And most people, unfortunately, don't know about perennial vegetables because it's not taught in common curriculum. These are perennial vegetables, or something like, my favorite is known as katuk. And the katuk just grows these is like a shrub. Actually, if I had a place here, I'd probably line my front walkway next to the sidewalk if I lived in the city, and I'd just grow a katuk hedge. So I'd plant katuk like maybe every 12 inches, and it grows up basically straight and tall, so you can have a nice hedge of katuk. Once it gets maybe like this tall, you should top it off, because otherwise it gets long and lanky, but if you top it off, it'll actually outshoot and sprout, and then you'll basically just have a hedge that looks like a normal hedge. Everybody's not going to know that it's all edible, but you do. You could just come out and eat all the greens, and when you top it, you could eat the top shoots, and it's like, it reminds me of eating asparagus, even though it's much thinner, but they have tender little shoots that you could eat from. And this plant is, the taste is amazing. It tastes like no other leafy green, and this is one of the reasons why I like it. It tastes, my friend Paul Nissan, how many people know Paul? A bunch of people, yeah. He says it tastes like peanut butter, and I personally think that's a little bit of a stretch myself. I would say it kind of tastes more like, yeah, Paul's a funny guy. I would say it tastes more like sugar snap peas with a little nutty flavor. It tastes like pea-ish with nuts. And it's like amazing in a green to add to a salad. And this grows, you plant it, and as long as you don't get a frost, which you guys haven't had in, I guess, in a while maybe, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Never have to replant your lettuce every freaking season, and you can only plant it in the wintertime here because it's too hot in the summer. This plant loves the summer. So that's one of my favorite perennial greens. I mean, and there's other ones too. There's this one called, depending on who you ask, it's called, the scientific name or whatever, Latin name is Gynera procumbens. The easier name to remember is called longevity spinach, or the places here that I've seen call it Chinese spinach. And this is another plant that you could plant, and it just kind of like, it's not really a vine, but it kind of vines out and grows, and it grows these leaves that you could just, they're nice semi-succulent, not super succulent leaves that you could eat, and they have a really nice neutral flavor. Once again, you plant it once, provided you don't get a frost. It grows year-round. In Las Vegas, where we do get frost, so I basically dig them up and put them in my greenhouse to overwinter them, and then I pull them back out. But here you guys are really lucky because you could just plant it once, and it'll just take over a big area. If you want to trellis it up and grow it, up a trellis, and you'll have leaves to eat all year long, forever, until you get a frost. And yeah, that's another one of my favorite ones. And then another one is called the Okinawan spinach. So that's another Gynera, and both these Gynera plants they've done a lot of research in Asia where they're from. One of them they call actually the cholesterol lowering plant. And in my opinion, as much as this plant will lower your cholesterol if you're eating it, I think the better solution to lower your cholesterol is to stop eating the things that are causing your cholesterol to be high, which is probably too many animal products. And so there's many compounds in the plants that may lower your cholesterol, may clean out your arteries, may do this, may do that, and I don't remember them all. I mean, I got friends that are doctors that will teach you all that stuff. All I know is that I want to include all these different things in my diet because each of these foods are so powerful in their own way. I want to have all these foods, so with the cholesterol lowering plant, my cholesterol's low. With this plant, I'm not going to get cancer. With this plant, it's cleaning out my arteries, and so I just eat them all. And that's what I encourage all you guys to do. Anyways, there's the Okinawan spinach, which is another one. That's really cool because that, aside from growing as a little vine and growing out and growing all year, it's actually purple. It has a purple tinge to it. And another thing I've recently learned is that we really want to be eating purple foods. They've done studies with mice, which I don't necessarily agree with, but they fed mice junk food, and then they fed mice junk food with some purple pigmented plants. I think it was carrots. I forget exactly what they used. But basically what they found was the mice that fed the junk food, of course, they gained weight, but the mice that were fed the junk food with the purple carrots, even though they ate junk food, they didn't gain weight. Now, I'm not saying eat purple carrots and other purple foods and eat junk food. No, I'm saying eat the purple foods and don't eat the junk food so you can maintain a healthy weight and also get the other protective effects from the purple foods, which are many. And so that's why I like the Okinawan spinach, because it is purple. I mean, I could go on and on with other different perennial greens. What are some of my other ones? If you cook your greens, there's a tree called the chia tree. That's not to be eaten raw, it's poisonous raw, but you could just grow this tree, and this is a tree that you won't be able to get rid of, because if you cut it and then a branch drops in the ground, it's going to shoot up and grow another tree, right? These things want to keep growing, right? And we just need to get out of the way. So, but yeah, these ones, you gotta just, you harvest them, then you just gotta cook them to eat them to get rid of the toxins in there. Another one that you don't have to eat, that you don't have to cook to eat, and this is probably another one of my favorite ones that not enough people grow, in my opinion. They just call it the edible hibiscus. The edible hibiscus is another amazing tropical tree that just grows up, and it has leaves, and the leaves, to me, personally, they remind me of eating lettuce. So as much as you guys can't grow lettuce in the summer, you could grow this edible hibiscus that has nice, large leaves that have a really mild and neutral flavor for you. And basically, with growing all these different perennials, you could go around your garden that are going to grow year-round and pick a little bit of all these and make a nice big salad out of them. So now you don't have to buy the $3 or $4 lettuce. And you could also grow, the tropical lettuce, for the nutrients in lettuce. Not that I want to say only eat these foods. I still want everybody to get a diversity, but focus on the easiest ones. So lettuce is a treat. You could have lettuce and then harvest all your stuff and add it to the lettuce. Some of these tropical greens we're not used to. We don't know how they taste. You may not like them. So that's when I try to especially when getting used to them, is to have a big salad of lettuce and have, 3 Okinawan spinach leaves if you don't like the taste, and you're going to mix it up in there, so at least you're getting them in you, and you're not going to, get the taste of the new greens that you're not used to so much. And as time goes on, reduce the amount of lettuce and increase the amount of the greens that you're eating, so you could eat, pretty much by the end, you're just going to be ending up eating your greens instead of the stuff you're buying, mixing it, because that's what you're used to. I think in America and other places around the world, we get into habits, like, oh, every morning for breakfast I make a banana, coconut, green powder smoothie. And I do that every morning, and then every day for lunch, I eat bananas, and every day for this, I have it. I really wanted people to just start, changing up what they eat every day. Like, what I eat every day is based on what I got that's ripe, what I have in my garden that I need to harvest, and so that's what I eat. So it's always changing, because just by doing that, I'm eating with the seasons, because I'll get a good deal on, I got a good deal on actually organic pineapples in Los Angeles when I was there last. They were like a case of 6 organic pineapples for $6. So now I've been eating pineapples, and how I'll eat the pineapples, because if you eat pineapples, especially organic ones, it really sucks. Most of the time they're picked unripe. And I don't live where I could grow pineapples, like some of you all. I just will juice the pineapples with greens from my garden. So I'll make a pineapple green juice. So now I could have greens from my garden mixed in with the pineapples, and then the juice will cut the flavor of the strong greens, although my greens taste fine. And I don't mind them, but I know a lot of people are sensitive to having strong green juices. And if you've hated kale your whole life because you buy it at the store, trust me, if you grow your own kale and harvest them, young and tender, kale is a totally different animal. Even to this date, I go to the store and I'll taste kale. I can't even buy kale at Whole Foods or anything anymore. I'll taste it and I'm like, man, this tastes gross. I don't know why anybody likes this stuff. It tastes so much better when you guys grow it yourself. Now, aside from growing some of those perennial greens, you should also grow some fruit trees if you have more room. Some of the easiest fruit trees to grow, I would recommend for this area that you can get returns on relatively quickly. The easiest, papayas and bananas. Starfruit, yeah, that fruits multiple times a year. But yeah, bananas and papayas, super simple. And if you're going to grow papayas, I do encourage you to buy named varieties of seeds. So you can have special varieties. You can, of course, grow the papaya seeds that you get from the store after you eat one, but then you kind of don't know what you're going to get. And if you're going to take the time to grow some food, I want you guys to grow some good ones. So they have some really good selections from Southeast Asia. I really like the red papayas because they're, more colorful foods, have more antioxidants, which means greater levels of health for us. I think there's this one called Red Lady and some other funky Thai names that I can't remember. But if you're looking for a source of some of these perennial vegetables, because you can't just go down to Home Depot and say, hey, do you guys have katuk? They'll look at you like you're from Mars. Or if you go down to Home Depot and ask, do you have that rock dust this guy John Kohler talked about? They'll be like, what? It's hard to find some of these special things to grow high quality food, unfortunately. But you guys are lucky that you guys don't live too far from Fort Myers, where I was at actually. It was yesterday. I was at this place called Echo. How many people have heard of Echo? E-C-H-O. They're on Durance Road in Fort Myers. I would encourage everybody here to visit Echo. Number one, go on their tour, because you'll see, if you think you guys can't grow food here, you go on their Echo tour, you'll see all the food they're growing. And that's like what I want my house to look like. I mean, they have like 400 volunteers and 50 paid positions and like 7 interns that work there full time. But, you know, I mean, it looks really nice, and you can see like they're growing bok choy, they're growing cabbage, they're growing, you know, teff, they're growing, you know, amaranth. I mean, they got everything growing, and it could really motivate you. And some of the things and how they're growing it is insane. So they have like a concrete like block, and they're growing these nice kohlrabis that are like this big on a concrete block with this much soil. So I mean, that just like boggled my mind. The video that I made there yesterday, I focused on that little area where they're, you know, growing, which is trying to simulate an urban environment. They're growing in this much soil. And so it's just amazing what you could do. So just going there and going on the tour hopefully will inspire you like it inspired me, that you can grow here, because that's your same exact climate. So you're going to want to grow exactly the things that they grow there, not grow the things that you used to grow in, you know, Maine or New York when you lived there. And the other thing is you're going to see a lot of the perennial vegetables. And they have a nursery attached to Echo where you could buy these perennial vegetables that I'm talking about, because they're not available at normal nurseries. Normal nurseries have no clue about these things, because Echo, what they do is actually they're a nonprofit Christian organization that goes out and teaches people around the world how to grow their food instead of just simply giving them rice to eat. And I mean, I think this is truly the answer. And as much as they're doing this around the world, I think they need to also do this in the States, because we need to know how to grow our food. There's so many food deserts, and the quality of the food is so poor. But you guys have this amazing resource, like literally right down the street. And they also sell the rock dust for the lowest price I've seen in South Florida. And that's pretty impressive. It's $39 for a 44-pound bag at present time. And the plants, some of the plants that I talked about, the perennial edible vegetables like the katuk, like the Okinawan spinach, and there's a few more they have down there. It's a nice 1-gallon sized pot for $6. And so, and some of these plants are really nice. Like, I mean, a 1-gallon pot of Okinawan spinach, the pot's like this, the plant was like this tall. You could start eating off that immediately, and here's the cool thing. Once you buy one plant, you don't need to buy another one as long as you keep it alive, because you can just take cuttings off the plant. The plants are so big that you just take a cutting off the top and just stick it in dirt, and, you know, keep the dirt watered and whatnot, or good compost, and it's gonna make new roots, and it's gonna grow a new plant. And then if you have acreage, I would recommend, you know, putting a planting here, and have different plantings all around your property. So in case something happens and the bugs get that one, you're going to have another one over here. You're going to have backup plants. And you can have multiple croppings of all these different perennial vegetables around your whole property. And then basically what's going to happen is going to turn into what's called a food forest. You're going to have food growing everywhere on your property, and you're going to have to go to the grocery store less and less and less, and buy less and less and less. And you're going to be eating, you know, the more nutritious food that you're growing out of your garden. Oh, and let's see, so some other points I wanted to talk about besides growing the right stuff, you also want to maybe do some better gardening practices than what is normally done. You know, a common belief is that, you know, you need to plant the plant and then you need to fertilize it, right? We need to put this synthetic-based, chemical, you know, man-made fertilizer on it, miracle crap, 10, 10, 10, whatever it is, on our plants to grow it. And to me, that's like, like the analogy I like to give, feeding a plant this chemical fertilizer is like us living on that stuff somebody created called Soylent, or trying to live on these artificial man-made vitamins. It's not going to lead to ultimate health for you when you have living on that stuff, and it's not going to lead to the ultimate health of your plants. Furthermore, it's going to do some damage. So living on these vitamins and Soylent, highly processed food products, probably going to mess you up. And it also, when you're using the synthetic fertilizers, it's going to mess up your soil. And that's unfortunately what's happening in large industrial agriculture, is that they're really messing up the soil. They're losing organic matter, because when you feed the soil these synthetic nutrients, basically it's like instead of you having to make your own food and preparing it from scratch, it's like you going to McDonald's. You know, it's really bad for the plants, it's bad for the soil, it's wrecking the soil, and you're losing the structure of the soil. So it's kind of like cheating the system, and at some point you got to pay. So instead of just literally feeding the nutrients to the plants directly that it could absorb, what I want to do instead is I want to build the soil. I'm not actually growing vegetables, I'm actually growing the soil. When I build the soil has, greater levels of organic matter. That's very important. That's the compost, both the bacterial compost, the fungal compost, also the trace minerals in the form of rock dust, the ocean solids. And the other thing that's important besides organic matter and the minerals are the microbes. That's very important. We don't understand that, we are more microbe than human. We have beneficial probiotics living on our skin. Actually, I use a probiotic soap to bathe in to, give myself further protection from the bad bacteria. But I also take, probiotic foods, such as fermented foods, many different kinds. And also I take probiotic supplements, my favorite of which is actually a probiotic food in a capsule, which is actually not a man-made probiotic, but I take those as well. But we need these probiotics because these probiotics and these beneficial bacteria and fungi or fungus or yeasts. Some people are like, oh, you got candida overgrowth. Well, we're supposed to have candida in us. The problem is it gets out of control because it's not in balance with the other yeast in our body. But we need all these things because all these things help us digest our food. And so if you're having like digestive issues, you may be deficient in probiotics. They've done studies where they show that if you don't have a certain kind of probiotic, you may be more prone to, gaining weight and, being fatter, I guess, or obese. So it's very important. And some of the things that I've learned about the probiotics, a lot of people talk about like, don't eat spinach because it has oxalic acid. And we can't process oxalic acid, right? One of the things I learned in all my research is that we don't process oxalic acid, but the probiotics will process the oxalic acid out of the foods. So if you pre-ferment your foods, or if you have a good microbiome in you, that's going to help break down, that stuff. Also, of course, we can't digest fiber, but the probiotics in us digest the fiber that we can't digest, and then in return, they give us nutrients for us that are some of the most powerful antioxidants that we don't have to actually eat ourselves, that they make for us in their process of digesting the food. And this is one of the reasons why probiotics are very essential. So I encourage everybody to eat, probiotics in different forms, whether that means fermented foods for you, different kinds of fermented foods, or even supplements. And the supplement that's the best supplement that I've determined that's out there, which is actually a probiotic supplement, but it's not this white crystalline powder made in a lab. It's actually a probiotic food because it's from Japan. It's actually called Dr. Ohhira's Probiotic 10 Plus. And this is in a little capsule. Now the capsule is not vegan. It's a vegetarian because it has some bee product in there. So if that concerns you, that's what it is. I take it because I don't care because it's anyways, this probiotic tablet, basically they go up in the mountains of Japan, they harvest all these foods and they have these vats that they play music to, and they have this culture just growing, and it grows for years until they actually take the food out, they put them in capsules, and then they sell them as probiotics. And they've done a lot of, Dr. Ohhira's done a lot of research on how beneficial this is. And I'm going to say this, like, when I go to foreign countries, the one thing, and even when I travel anywhere, the one thing I have is I have a whole bunch of these Dr. Ohhira's probiotics that are actually shelf stable out of the refrigerator. And if I get any kind of stomach discomfort, like if I go at a raw food restaurant, I'm like, got a stomach ache after that, I take like 4 of these and the stomach problem goes away. This is very important, especially when I travel to foreign countries and I might get some kind of foodborne illness. I just take a bunch of these and then this problem seems to go away. So I mean, that's just, and I take this, I try to take some certain supplements. I don't really like to take supplements because I would prefer to get nutrients from my food, but in some cases they can be beneficial, and there's probably some supplements that I probably should take more of. But I always encourage you guys, before you guys take a supplement, ask yourself, how can I get this nutrient from my food if I can? So for example, another one that I like to eat, another fermented food to get a certain nutrient that's not normally available in a plant-based or vegan diet, is vitamin K2. If you're eating meat, you're probably getting your vitamin K2, but in a plant-based diet, you're probably not getting K2. Some people might say the vitamin K converts into K2 in the body, which may or may not be true, but I don't want to rely on that. So I eat what's called natto, which is basically fermented soybeans without anything else added, and it has to be raw, or it may affect the K2 level. So you pretty much got to make it yourself because you can't really find it raw. And a lot of times they add crap to it, and a lot of times it may not be organic soybeans. So I eat the natto to get my vitamin K2 because K2 is implicated in bone health and creating healthy bones. And I've seen a lot of people, other vegans where I've seen and read about or heard, and they've told me about their bone scans, and their bones may not be as strong as a normal person's out there. Actually, I was diagnosed when I've done bone scans as osteopenic, and that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so it's important to try to source your nutrients from food instead of supplements. Now, I do take a B12 supplement, which I do recommend everybody to take, whether you're a meat eater or vegan, because I think that is a problem of modern day agriculture and just the culture, not necessarily the diet, because both vegans and non-vegans can be B12 deficient. So my solution, which is I'm not like gonna rely on this until I'm really sure, but one of the main reasons why we're losing B12 these days, in my opinion, from my research, is because the soils are being depleted. Number one, for B12, which is known as cobalamin, cyanocobalamin, methylcobalamin, it all ends in cobalamin. So what that means is you need to have the cobalt in the soil. If the cobalt's not there, then there won't be the B12. The other part besides the mineral component of the B12 is the bacterial component. So you need certain bacteria to fix the cobalt to basically to make the B12. And so I've been adding trace minerals, and hopefully one of these days I'm going to come up with a soil supplement to add cobalt plus the certain bacteria that makes the B12 so that it could be in my soil. So then some plants, like the AShitaba plant is one, also the Cape gooseberries I heard is another one that may absorb the B12. But I'm not relying on that for my B12 at this time. But that's how my research led me to believe, because y'all got to ask yourself, well, John, if cows have B12 in it and then we eat the cows, we get the B12, why do they have the B12? Well, not all cows have B12. It depends what the cows are eating. If cows are eating GMO corn and soy, they're not getting B12 either. Only if cows are free range and they're digging up the grass and they have good soil and they're eating the roots and the microbes in there, and there's cobalt in the soil and there's the right bacteria in the soil, then they may be eating the B12. That's why they're going to have it. And then when we eat them, we're going to get it. But naturally, we would get that, from the plants and from the soil. But even I have friends that, I've grown using rock dust and eat dirty produce that they don't wash, and they've been B12 deficient. So I don't necessarily recommend that strategy for the B12. But anyways, whatever the nutrient you think you need is, I always encourage you guys to do some research and find out what plant food you could get it from. And you could get all the nutrients you need from plants. There's no reason to eat any kind of animal products. Like I heard before said, dairy is unnecessary, and also in my opinion, meat is also unnecessary. We don't need it. If you enjoy it, hey, I'm not going to tell you to stop eating it, but what I will tell you is to increase the fruit and vegetable consumption. But yeah, so adding microbes is essential, as I have explained, for both us and also the soils for many reasons, and I believe that's a really big problem in the modern day agriculture, because they don't focus on the minerals and they don't focus on the microbes. So to get microbes in, I have different microbial inoculants. You could actually make your own, known as IMOs, or basically indigenous microbes, to expand them. Aside from indigenous microbes, I think it's also good to bring in other microbes, because we want to have a diversity of microbes. So I use things such as compost tea, and the compost tea is based around basically the worm castings, which are one of the richest source of microbes out there. And I have videos specifically on building your microbial matrix, because the microbes basically break down the organic matter, break down the minerals, and make it bioavailable for your plants. So if you've been growing stuff and it's not really growing well and you're trying to grow organic, it's not working well, I would say add the compost tea, add some good microbes, because that'll kind of get your system jump started. Just like us, we need good microbes in us to help us digest our foods. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much my talk. It kind of hopefully showed my journey of why I'm so passionate about what I do now, because I learned that to have the highest quality food, to have the healthiest immune system, to eat healthy and to be the healthiest, I need to, number one, have the highest quality food, and to do that I need to grow my own food. Number two, I could grow foods that money cannot buy. So I could grow things like AShitaba, like all the perennial vegetables that I shared with you guys tonight that you can't go down and buy in the store, that have all kinds of research, documented research in foreign countries about lowering cholesterol, being anti-cancer, anti-this, anti-that. I don't care what all those things are. I just care that they're beneficial to me. And I get sad when I miss out on different nutrients. So then I, look in seed catalogs and travel around and find different plants that I'm not eating, and then try to find a way to get them into me so I could have a greater level of my immune system so that I don't get sick again. And I mean, even to this date, that's what I'm concerned about in my life, is having the highest immune system and doing things to, increase my health and, instead of lessen it. Like, I try to always go to bed when I'm tired at night and wake up whenever I wake up. I don't wake up with alarms, because this assures me every day I'm getting the amount of sleep my body needs. And I know most of you guys probably in here, are not doing that because you can't. You got a job. So, I would encourage everybody to create your life the way you want to live towards your values, whatever they may be. And, you may value connecting with your wife more than you getting brain cancer or getting kidney cancer because you have your cell phone on in your pocket. And I don't really care. That's your choice. If you guys want to eat 90% animal products, 10% vegetables and fruits, I don't really care. I'm just here to share with you guys what I learned, and hopefully you might take just a little bit of this information to better your guys' lives. So thank you. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yes, in the front.
Yeah, you were talking about this Brix Test. Like, is this a little meter or something you buy?
Right.
And how much?
Sure. So the question is, you've talked about this Brix Test. That's B-R-I-X test. And the tool you want to get is called a Brix refractometer, or 0 to 32 refractometer. So these Brix refractometers, they have two kinds. They have analog refractometers and they have digital refractometers. You might think, John, I'm going to get the digital one. They're more expensive. They're better. Actually, the digital ones are worse because the digital ones will just give you the number of the Brix, whereas the analog ones, which are only, depending on where you get it, you could spend $100 for an analog one, or you could spend $20. And actually, some of the $20 ones are pretty good. I just bought one off Amazon for $20 to test against my more expensive name brand one, and actually I found out after calibrating that my name brand one was actually off because there's an adjustment button. But yeah, they're $20 on Amazon. Look for Brix refractometer 0 to 32. There's different refractometers, but yeah, they're pretty expensive. But anyways, the analog ones, when you look into it, you'll see a bar graph and you'll see the number. It'll be like either a blue or white, and at the point of the blue, that's the number you want to look at. But more importantly than just where the number is, you want to look at the right where the color changes. Instead of being like all blue and then all white, you want it to be nice and fuzzy and cloudy in there. The fuzzy and cloudiness is actually one of the things that I really look for, that I really want, because that shows higher levels of trace minerals in there versus just having a higher Brix, which includes sugar content. And sugar content, I mean, depending if you like from the Hippocrates lifestyle way, sugar is evil and stuff. I don't know that I'd say that, but that's something to be aware of. Yes, over there.
Yes, John, I'm really interested in detoxing, using the juicing, and specific to kidney and liver, because they are the most organs, the two organs really get punished by the system. And we've been vegans for the last 4 or 5 years, but I'm sure our organs probably can use some kind of detoxing. And I eat fruits and vegetables and organic, but I don't know how much is it, and maybe I like to do intensified with the juicing, with the detox.
Sure. So the question is regarding detoxing the liver and kidneys, and how can you do that with the juicing? So I'm not one of those know-it-all guys that I know, oh, juice this for your liver and juice that for that. What I like to say instead is, our bodies are self-healing machines, we're not really machines, but our bodies are self-healing, and given the right nutrients, our bodies will heal itself over time. That being said, there's certain foods that are more helpful for cleansing different parts of your body. So, I have friends that know all these totally things. All I know is that, one of the things that I would be juicing and growing, because it's also something really easy to grow as well, are the dandelions. So I know the dandelions are really good, and I don't know that I'd sit there and drink straight dandelion juice, especially if you're not used to it, because even when I do my dandelion juice, pineapple, which I like to use pineapple to make it taste good, I could do pineapple chard, I could do pineapple kale, I could do pineapple spinach. You can't taste any of the greens, but I do pineapple dandelion. The juice still tastes like crap. So water it down, juice it with some oranges, or just add in dandelions when you're juicing with celery and cucumbers and other things. And then I would also encourage you to, because I don't know what detoxes this, do a search for vegetables that detox your liver. I'm sure you'll find plenty of websites with all kinds of different things and start trying those. But the other thing that I would recommend, that I don't like to recommend, I mean, you're already on a pretty hopefully healthy vegan diet. Not all vegan diets are healthy, unfortunately. I would encourage you maybe to do like a juice fast, because that gives you kind of like a break from eating. And as much as I don't like juice fasts in some respects, because as juice fasts are promoted, they promote like, oh yeah, juice fast, you could lose weight and all this stuff and you're going to get healthy. But the problem is after you're off your juice fast, most people go back to what they were doing. I mean, the classic example is Joe Cross. He made that movie, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. He juice fast, he got a lot of benefits from it. Then he got off the juice fast and he wasn't serious about his health. He started eating junk food and he ballooned his weight again. And that's not how I believe juice fast should be used. If it could help you temporarily, that's great. And then go back to, of course, eating a vegan diet rich in fruits and vegetables as well as other nutrients. And also, especially when detoxing, is one of the most important things is to stay hydrated. And especially stay hydrated, I don't necessarily mean drink water, especially the tap water. If you're going to drink water, make sure it's a good filtered water that doesn't have the fluoride and the chloramines and the chlorine. But instead of just drinking water, I like to drink coconut water is my favorite. Or better than that, I like to drink juices. So fresh juices from vegetables. That's nature's purified water. Along with the water, you're getting tons of vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals and phytonutrients. Let's see, yeah, I'm in the green shirt.
Have you heard of Paul Gautschi up in Washington and his back to eating method?
Of course.
Are you going to do a video on that?
Yeah, so the question is regarding this guy, Paul, who came up with this back to eating gardening method where he uses like wood chips. He's kind of maybe a religious stuff, and everything he relates into religion and all this. And yeah, I mean, I'm aware of his work. I've seen some of the videos on him, and it's one of my goals to get up there. That being said, when I travel, I don't travel to like go see somebody. Like I didn't necessarily come out here to give talks. I got a cheap flight actually to Fort Lauderdale. It was like $122 round trip. So I'm like, okay, I'm out in Florida. Now let's see how I could fill my schedule up for the week. So if I see a cheap trip to Seattle and it's maybe during the summertime versus the winter, I might head up there. If it's like I flew out to Salt Lake City, it was like a $40 round trip for me. And that's why I flew there, just because it was a $40 round trip. And I'm like, oh, let's get away and let's find some cool stuff to film. And I always find cool stuff wherever I go. Yes, right there in the glasses.
Smoothies versus juicing.
Smoothies versus juicing. That's a big topic. I sell juicers and I sell blenders, but I gotta say, I mean, there's pros and cons to both. I mean, it depends who you ask. If you ask, Brian Clement from Hippocrates, he says blending, you lose 99% of the nutrients in the blender. I don't know that I'd go that far. But I'd say that, I'd rather have a blended smoothie or a blended salad than a Coke, than a coffee, than any kind of processed food in a can, bottle, jar, even processed vegan meats and a lot of processed foods. I'd rather have a smoothie because that's still way better, because what is your smoothie made out of? Fruits and vegetables. That being said, the smoothie only allows you to eat a volume of fruits and vegetables that you put in there. So for example, if you had, a pound of carrots, you could put a pound of carrots in there, you're going to have a pound of carrot mush. And if you take a pound of carrots to the juicer, yes, you're removing some of the fiber, not all of it, but you're going to reduce the pound of carrots into 1 cup of juice. Also, the digestion factor. So some people have challenges with digesting fiber. I think that's partly relates to if you don't have a good microbiome, because you're not digesting the fiber, your microbiome is. Also, if you have a lot of mucoid plaque and things in your intestines, you may not be absorbing things as well either. So that's probably another better reason to turn it into juice first. But another point was it's easier to digest. Oh, another point when you're juicing is you're removing only one of the 2 types of fiber. There's 2 types of fiber. People don't realize this. There's soluble fiber and there's insoluble fiber, right? The soluble fiber, what does soluble mean? Dissolves in water. So the soluble fiber dissolves in water. When you're juicing, you're getting the juice, which is basically a liquid carrot, which is the water. So you're getting all the soluble fiber. The thing you're removing is the insoluble fiber. So in carrots, I looked this up, the ratio between soluble to insoluble fiber in carrots is approximately, but not exactly, 50-50. So when you juice carrots, you're still getting half of the fiber in there because it's the soluble fiber. You're removing all the insoluble fiber. Now I'm not saying we don't need the insoluble fiber. I eat plenty of salads and other things, and when I would go on a juice fast, I wouldn't do that for my life. I would do that for a portion of time, and I don't have a problem drinking a juice a day, but of course other times of the day I like to eat foods. And the other thing with this is nutrient loss with the processing. This is something not often talked about. You go in a lot of, well, I call them stupid videos on YouTube. Blending is better because you get everything. You know, you watch the NutriBullet infomercial, you know, David Wolf's up there, you know, talking like, you know, you blow the cells open upside down or inside out or something and all this stuff, you know, I mean, yes, okay, that's true, right? But what happens when you blow the cells inside out, right? You're oxidizing them to the max. I mean, y'all get hurricanes here. You don't get tornadoes like they do up in Kansas, right? But have you ever looked inside your Vitamix when it's spinning? You got a nice vortex in there. What does that look like? That looks like a tornado in Kansas that rips up houses, rips up the Walmart roofs, throws that all over. And that's what you're doing to the nutrients in your food. So not to go to the extent that Brian Clement, you know, would say that you lose 99% of nutrients, but you lose a good portion of the nutrients. And so that's why I don't like blending so much, but of course, you know, you got to do the best you can. You know, I blend sometimes, I juice sometimes. I mean, if I had to say one's better, I would say juicing. Of course, there's benefits of blending, and next year, thankfully enough, after all these years, it should have happened way earlier, there's new blending technology that you're going to be able to blend and minimize the oxidative damage to the food. And that's going to be amazing. So I'm going to have videos, and as soon as they're out in America, they're not out in America, they're out in foreign countries right now, and that's going to be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I think I like juicing mainly because you could compress the amount of volume you could get into a smaller space, and I only encourage the use of slow juicers, which minimally damage the nutrients. And the most important nutrient in the fruits and vegetables, in my opinion, at this point in my life, are the phytonutrients and phytochemicals, as well as the minerals. The minerals won't get affected negatively by the blending, but unfortunately, many of the phytonutrients will. Yes, over there.
I had several different types, and we're recently reading a book, and it talks about more different types, and they say the Norwalk is very best, but it's very expensive, I know. But which one, of your opinion, is like doesn't heat up? Because it heats up the juice a little bit, you know, it heats up the, and I think you're losing some nutrition that way. So.
Sure. So let me address that situation. That's another one that kind of upsets me a little bit. So it's often talked about that the Norwalk Juicer, which is a cold press style juicer, it's number one a triturator, runs at like I think 4,000 RPMs. Then you take the mash, you put it in the press, and it presses it out. They say that's the best juicer out there because it runs at a low RPM and it doesn't heat up the juice or whatever. And then there's like other juicers, like the high-speed juicers, like the Juice Man juicer. That's a high-speed centrifugal ejection juicer. And you know, in the olden days, these are the only two kind of juicers that were out there, and a lot of books on juicing, in my opinion, are outdated. You know, I go to the trade shows every year. I see the latest juicers. I use all the juicers. I have over 450 videos on YouTube demonstrating and comparing and contrasting all the different juicers. And I have a different opinion about these things. I wouldn't necessarily say that in every case the Norwalk is always the best juicer. Number one, the Norwalk, you know, they're kind of like the American car manufacturers. They haven't really improved their technology since the 1930s when that was invented. They kind of made it a little bit better. So another company came along called the Pure Juicer, which I have videos coming out on hopefully next year, where I show that and how it's an improved Norwalk juicer if you want that style machine. And one of the cons of that machine is it's $2,500. But another con I show when I compare the Norwalk to the different slow juicers I recommend and use is it has some downfalls. You know, one of which is including taking a long time to use and clean, and you got these press cloths. And the thing people don't realize in the Norwalk, when you're using a press cloth, you're only getting the nutrients that are totally immersed in water that go through the press cloth. So it leaves a lot of the fiber behind. You know, there are still nutrients in the fiber. I will not lie. There are nutrients in the fiber. So I want to include small particles of fiber in my juice, and some of the juicers these days with the little stainless steel screens let some particulate in there. And so I could easily demonstrate this that I did in a video that I'll publish one of these days where I juice a pineapple. A pineapple in the Norwalk, you could lift it up and you could almost look through the pineapple juice because it's pretty much pineapple water. A pineapple in a slow juicer that kind of tears it up more, puts in more of the nutrients, is a more darker yellow. We want more darker colored foods in our lives. So for that reason, and the price, I don't necessarily recommend buying a Norwalk style machine. Of course, if you're on the Gerson therapy, they're completely sold that the Norwalk is the best juicer in the whole world. And yes, when that book was written, it was, and I think they're also kind of like, they don't like to embrace new technology. They know this works, and that's what works, and that's what they recommend. Right. So, you know, that's cool. That's my opinion of them, right? Nothing wrong with that. But since then, there's been a lot of new juicing technology that comes out. So I recommend definitely using a slow juicer. and there's many different slow juicers on the market. You know, some of the slow juicer types are, there's the twin gear slow juicer. There's also a single auger slow juicer, horizontal and vertical style. So I would recommend one of those 3 types. I have a really good 1 hour long video on YouTube where I go over all the different juicer types, the pros and cons of each. So I would recommend that episode because I even talk about the cold press and some of the pros and cons of that. For me personally, somebody into raw foods, I would probably either recommend the horizontal, vertical, or twin gear juicer, and it just depends on your specific needs. Some are easier to clean, some are harder to clean, some make a higher nutrient value, some juice certain produce items better than others. And what I will say is, you know, now another point of misinformation out there, in my opinion, is heating the juice. There's a lot of companies, if you see them saying, if you heat the juice, you lose nutrition. I mean, that's true, but here's the thing. The problem is most juicers don't produce heat hot enough to lose significant amounts of nutrition. So if I see that at a place trying to sell you a juicer, I would disqualify them because they're just repeating rhetoric, untrue rhetoric is what I say. But what I would say that damages the juice is not the heat, but the aeration of the juice. So the high-speed machines, they actually cool the juice down compared to some slow juicers that I personally tested. So this is why I know it's true. It cools the juice down, but the problem is it aerates the juice and throws a lot of air in there. Much like the Vitamix making that vortex, it's introducing air. Air causes oxidation. It's like you all live here in Florida. If your car gets scratched, man, it rusts overnight, and probably. And you know the oxygen will do damage to especially the nutrients once the cell walls are blown open or inside out or however they're blown open. So I don't recommend the high-speed machines unless using a high-speed machine will get you to juice, and otherwise you will simply not do it.
John,
Yes.
does the airplane mode of a cell phone protect you from the electromagnetic radiation?
So the question is, does the airplane mode on your cell phone protect you from the electromagnetic radiation? So there's all kinds of different radiations and things out there, and I think one of the things I try to do is try to minimize the bad stuff. I can't completely, unless I lived on an island in the middle of the Pacific or something with no cell towers, I'm not going to get rid of everything. So we got to do the best we can. So you know, of course, there's people that say, you know, in airplane mode with Wi-Fi, and we have free Wi-Fi in the building here. With Wi-Fi, I mean, Wi-Fi, whether my phone is receiving it or not, I'm being afflicted with Wi-Fi signals. You've been afflicted all your lives through radio signals and through television signals, no matter how old you are. These we cannot control, unfortunately, unless you live in a room that's painted with, you know, some kind of special coating to prevent these things from coming into your space. But what you can do is you can put yourself in airplane mode, and I think a bigger problem than Wi-Fi is also probably a problem, and I turn my Wi-Fi off all the time unless I'm using it specifically, and my whole house is wired for internet. So unless I need to use my cell phone on Wi-Fi to post the Instagram picture, I turn it on, and then I post my picture from my cell phone, then turn it off, although there is a way to connect even your iPhone wired. That's a whole other topic. But the problem with cell phones, in my opinion, the biggest problem, aside from having some EMFs or whatever, is the cell phone frequencies and the power generated. You know, when you're using Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi router is probably maybe downstairs or maybe somewhere in this room somewhere, and it only travels like, you know, 100 feet or so far. But the problem is your cell phone has to go out and reach a cell tower that could be 2-3 miles away. So there's incredible amounts of power going in and coming out. We can't prevent the cell phone radiation coming into us because it's just in the air as I'm speaking here, because the towers are near. And I would encourage you guys, if you're looking to buy a house or moving, there's websites that will tell you where the cell towers are so you could actually, you know, live farthest away. Luckily, where I live, I'm in the middle of the cell tower, so I get bad service area, which is a good thing. But when you're transmitting with your cell phone, it produces the most amount of radiation that's probably the most harming. And even if your cell phone is not on a call, it's receiving information and sending information, and that, in my opinion, is probably some of the worst stuff. Of course, keeping your cell phone off or not using it at all would be the best solution, but you got to do what you can. In the back, we haven't had a question. Yeah, you.
You mentioned the plant AShitaba. I recently received seeds. I think they came via you. Do you sell them?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you know people in Florida growing it, or can you just tell us the growing conditions they need? I'm about to plant it.
Sure, sure. So the question is regarding AShitaba, and this is a special angelica plant from Honshu Island in Japan. And so basically, when I grow anything, I want to try to look at where it was grown, and I look up the weather conditions of there. And so answering that question, I grow it in California, and it just grows outside in the sun year-round in Northern California. In Las Vegas, it's hot. It grows also year-round, but then in that location, I grow it in one of the shadiest parts of my yard, so it gets a little sun and not a lot of sun. And then furthermore, going on, I do know a gentleman that I met down in Fort Myers who's growing it here in Florida, and he said, for best results, grow it in an area that gets a little sun in the morning and then mostly shade. Because I don't think it likes maybe super hot heat, although it should be able to deal with some humidity. But even in Vegas, like I'm not planting it in full sun. So that'd probably be my best recommendation, because it normally would live on an island that has, a mild climate, doesn't really freeze and doesn't really get too hot. Yes, right there.
I have two questions. The first, I'm wondering if you know of a tree or leaf that's more nutrient dense than PK1 Moringa oleifera.
So the first question is, do I know a leaf that's more nutrient dense than PK1 Moringa? So Moringa is actually another tropical, edible, perennial green you will want to grow that I actually didn't mention. It has a stronger flavor, so you're going to have to get used to it if you don't like strong flavors. The other ones I mentioned have more mild or even good flavor. Moringa is also a very nutritious plant. It has lots of nutrients in there. Now, I don't really like to get into the whole point of arguing, this plant's more nutritious than this plant, so I'm only going to ever eat this plant, because the thing is this. Every plant has a whole host of different phytonutrients and phytochemicals, and they're all different. So you can't, like if you have kids, and you have two kids, and one kid asks you, Daddy, which kid do you like more? Do you like me or Joey? Like, you can't answer them because their own, maybe Joey is good in music and the other kid's good in football. And you can't really say, like, this is better than that. So I would say as much as that may be good, I would also like to increase the varieties of things, like grow the AShitaba that I like so much. Well, if it's legal here in Florida one day, grow cannabis. Cannabis is another amazing healing crop that we should be able to have access to, because there are these properties in there known as cannabinoids that we are not able to access because that plant is illegal and a Schedule I drug, which it does have side effects, if used improperly. But one of the things I heard about cannabis is the raw food poster child. And I'm like, great, I'm a raw foodist and I want to eat cannabis. And the doctor said that if you eat cannabis raw, you're not going to get the psychoactive effects. So it's like, yes. Unfortunately, I proved him wrong. So I successfully show in one of my videos how to get the psychoactive effects if that's what you want. I have a friend actually who I used the same recipe I made raw, and he had the psychoactive effects, like me, for 10 hours, which was not a good trip because I'm high on life and I don't want to be high on cannabis. Him, on the other hand, he loves being high on the cannabis. And I want every cannabis smoker that smokes it to drink cannabis green juices, so they can get high for 10 hours and have the other benefits of cannabis besides just getting high, like the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals, and the cannabinoids that we have cannabinoid receptors for that I know all you guys are not feeling to any major extent. Some certain foods have some cannabinoids in them, like I think basil, but not to any great extent. So that's another food that's why I include that for my health. So yeah, I would encourage you to expand the variety as much as you think moringa or kale or whatever is the best. Eat a wide variety. Say in your second question.
Well, my second question is, I have a moringa tree that I'm growing in pure vermiculite because I was interested in how the nutrition is being made in the moringa. Like if it's really getting it from soil, and so it's about 3 weeks old right now, and it looks very healthy. So eventually, I'm really curious about that.
That's
you
cool.
alluded to earlier about how a plant won't express its nutrition unless the nutrition was in the
Well, it
soil.
depends, yeah, and that's a whole nother topic. So here the question is, for people that didn't hear, is he's growing a moringa tree in vermiculite, which is basically a sterile growing medium that has very little nutrients in there, and he's been growing it for 3 weeks now. So here's the thing. So my thoughts on that are, I think it's a great experiment, and we all need to experiment in our personal lives doing different things to see what happens. under different situations. But basically in any seed, whatever seed it is, there's enough nutrition in that seed to get it started and grown up to a certain point. For example, coconuts. Coconuts, in the coconut husk and the whole thing, that thing could grow for months with just the nutrients in the coconut. I mean, that coconut meat, the fat meat, that could feed, it breaks down in the coconut to feed the sprout so it could grow and establish itself as a tree, and then it continues to grow. So that's probably like the extreme example. Of course, smaller seeds may not have enough nutrition to keep it growing, and that's why the trees or any plant will send down roots, because now it's looking to get further nutrition. So my opinion of what's going to happen in your situation, especially if you're not feeding any kind of water-soluble nutrients, like if you use the Ocean Solution product just to feed the nutrients to the plant in the vermiculite, it would do much, much better. But if you just continue to feed water, even in the water, unless you're using distilled water, there's some minerals in the water, small amounts, that the tree may be able to grow for a little while, and you're going to get leaves off it. But the thing is, if you grew it maybe in a better situation with the different kinds of compost, rock dust, and minerals, and you analyze the leaves, you could have, as I mentioned before, twice or more the levels of nutrition by growing it in a good, healthier way. Not to say that it's not going to grow in vermiculite, because it totally will, and it's going to do pretty good for a certain time. And I'd be curious to see how that tree's doing in a year.
It's an experiment.
Yeah, and that's great. That's how we learn.
Thank you.
But yeah, so that's that. In the black in the back.
Do you grow with chlorinated water, or what sort of water do you use?
Good question. So the question is, do I grow in chlorinated water, or what kind of water do I use? So I use the city water where I live, and I use a filter on the city water to filter it before I put it into my gardens. So I recommend that for everybody. I'm not going to say that like chlorine is the end of your whole garden, because plenty of people garden with the chlorine water. The chlorine in the water is definitely at a low rate, but the chlorine is in the water to kill the bacteria. And the bacteria is one of the things I'm trying to encourage in my garden. And besides just the chlorine in the water, there's also other chemical contaminants, one of which fluoride is actually I'm even more concerned about.
Here it's arsenic. Arsenic is the highest thing that's in the Sarasota and Manatee County water.
I see. But yeah, anyways, I know there's chloramine. That's actually more difficult to even remove. But the fluoride is another bad thing for us and also for our plants, because plants could bioaccumulate fluoride in there. And then when you eat them, then even if you're not drinking the water, you're getting it from your plants. And that's even harder to remove, unfortunately. But I recommend a good filter. If you just have chlorine, then you could get away with a KDF filter, and if you have chloramine, then you're going to have to more regularly change solid catalytic carbon block filter. And I do have videos on my Growing Your Greens YouTube channel with my recommendations on the specific filters.
We can use rainwater here.
Oh, and the other thing, yes, of course, thank you.
It's the only thing I ever use.
Yeah, so of course the best thing to use in your garden is not city water or tap water. If you have a well and it's not contaminated, then that would probably be a good source, because that's not going to have the chlorine in there or fluoride. But the rainwater, another excellent thing. Catch the rainwater in big, totes, IBC totes. They're sometimes maybe $100 on Craigslist, or 55-gallon drums.
55-gallon drums are advertised right now on sale for $64.95.
That's a lot.
How long does that
Yeah,
last
but
you?
it's shipped to your door.
Oh, but you could pick them up on Craigslist, or check with your local Coca-Cola bottling company, which I think is down in Fort Myers. They get their syrups in these 55-gallon drums that then they mix with water, and then they have all these drums that they have to throw away or they give to somebody to sell. And so those are food-grade drums instead of having like oil or some other kind of petroleum product in there, even though it was Coke. That's pretty toxic stuff. But it's better, right?
John,
Yes,
I
over
wanted to
there.
ask you, I have a garden that I'm growing, and I have rodents are eating my romaine lettuce. So what natural ingredient can you use to keep them away?
So the
I'm
question.
container gardening, so so I just want to keep them away because
Right.
they obviously
Sure.
like it.
Yeah, so the question is, she has rodents eating her romaine lettuce in her container garden. What does she do? So you can sit out there with a BB gun or a gun, right? I wouldn't do that. I don't got time to do that.
Right.
You could invest in a good mouse or cat, so adopt a cat from a shelter. You could have a a pet cat that also eat the mice. Some dogs or mousers also. But, you know, those may or may not work. They're not dependable, so I would recommend something more dependable. You could set traps, of course. I've done that in the past.
Okay.
But even better than that, they have, well, I don't know if it's better, but they have sprays that will keep mice away, like spray your plants with the cayenne solution.
Okay.
I don't know that I would necessarily put all my eggs in one basket with that. They have, you know...
Blood meal?
Well, yeah, there's like there's different kinds of urines, so they could sell you like, I don't know, fox urine and things. I don't know if those would work either, but you could waste your money on those things. But one thing that will work is just build little cages over your, take some PVC, get some connectors, build like a little rectangular frame, put some chicken wire on it that's a small enough hole so they can't get in, and then set that over on top of your whole container. And then they won't be able to get in. Then when you're ready to harvest, just pull that off, set it to the side, and then harvest your stuff. This way you're not wasting money on gimmicks that may not work.
That's true.
And yeah, that's probably, and then of course there's this, if you don't mind killing rats, because some people are vegans, they don't want to kill rats, there's a product called, I think it's called Rat X, and that's one of the safer poisons that's basically just like corn gluten meal, I believe, to kill the rodents, and it's not harmful for anything other than rodents. So cats and dogs or humans, it's not toxic to. But rabbits, it would be toxic to because there are other rodents.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the front.
What's the best way to naturally raise and lower pH with the ocean solution and hydroponics?
So the question is, what's the natural way to raise and lower pH in hydroponics? So I'm not the best person to ask because I don't actually grow in hydroponics. You know, I know that some people use just standard vinegar, and that'll vinegar's acidic, so that'll lower it. And then to raise it, I mean, I would use my Las Vegas water. That's very alkaline. But so I wouldn't have an answer for you on that. Yeah. How about there in the hat?
What are your views on some of the nutritional healing with Sally Fallon on things like organ meats and bone broths and glucosamine and the effects of such, and cooking and also breaking and lysing open cell walls to get the nutritional and vitamins inside the cell walls and such?
Sure. So the question is regarding Sally Fallon, and she does the Weston Price style diet. So, I mean, one of the things I like to look at is I like to look at the person that's preaching or teaching you guys what they're teaching. I mean, I'm a pretty fit and healthy guy, and this has been my life because I almost lost my life. I don't have a whole lot of information on Sally, and I haven't seen any published pictures of her lately, but I mean, my personal opinion is she's not the healthiest looking human being out there. That being said, you know, there's benefits to all these things she does recommend. You know, I'm not going to necessarily talk bad about that, but what I will say, if it comes from an animal, it contains foreign proteins. Anything that contains foreign proteins causes an autoimmune reaction within us. One of the reasons why I went raw in the first place, which I didn't talk about in my talk, was because I learned of this thing called leukocytosis. And leukocytosis is basically when you eat foods, basically your white blood cells increase. And when your white blood cells increase, your white blood cells are commonly known as your immune system. So knowing that when I would eat supposedly cooked food, this is what I learned, you know, 20 years ago now, or over 20 years ago now, when you eat cooked foods, it causes a leukocytosis reaction. So now you're raising your white blood cell count. So it's kind of like that story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. The Boy Who Cried Wolf story, everybody know that story? Yeah, so he would cry wolf, and the people would come with their guns and everything, and there's no wolf. I'm just joking with you. And then one time he said he cried wolf, and the wolf was there, and nobody came. And so now you're activating your immune system, and that's one of the things I really want to, let heal the most and have the strongest. And I learned by eating cooked foods, you're going to always activate your immune system, and then your immune system would not be ready for when you really have an invader and an attacker. And so so since that time, I learned that it wasn't the cooked foods that causes the leukocytosis reaction. So this kind of took a bite of one of my main reasons for doing raw foods. But what I learned instead was, the accurate information is that, any animal product causes a leukocytosis reaction, whether that is raw or cooked. Plant foods, even if they're cooked, does not cause a leukocytosis reaction. That being said, I haven't gone back to eating cooked plant foods. But, that is a reason why I personally don't eat animal foods. I mean, here's the thing. When you eat the animal food, it causes a leukocytosis reaction, and your body reacts against it. So an easy example I like to say to people is, if I have a brother, and if my brother, unfortunately, something happened to his kidney, and I had to give him one of my kidneys, and we are the same blood type and all this stuff, I gave him my kidney. Now my brother's living with my kidney is filtering his blood like it's supposed to. The thing is, my brother would not accept my organ, even though I'm his brother, we're closest in genetics. His body would reject my organ, even though we're so close. He would have to take immunosuppressive drugs for the entire rest of his life, because it's my kidney, not his. And when you eat any animal or have animal product other than you, if you eat yourself, I guess this doesn't count, then your body is basically an autoimmune response. Not to say that there's not, good nutrients in there. I mean, one of the things, bone broth. That's a very interesting topic. There's nutrients in the middle of the bone. The bone basically is a storage vessel of minerals and other things. And, in my opinion, that's not necessary. If you're eating things that aren't breaking down your cartilage, we shouldn't have to eat cartilage to get cartilage for our body to make it or to absorb it. Because anyways, when we eat protein from meat, our bodies have to digest that protein into amino acids and then reassemble those amino acids into the proteins we need. So why not subvert that whole issue and eat plant proteins, which aren't even proteins, they're just amino acids already broken down that then our body could take and form into our proteins, subverting a step, saving energy and conserving energy in our body to do other things like house cleaning, like building your immune system. So, that's just my overall ideas about animal products. And yeah, if you want to include some of those foods, once again, 10% or less, and you eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, I don't think it's an issue. Now, the problem is when you're eating more of that stuff and not enough fruits and vegetables. And I'm not just saying a vegan diet, eat 90% vegan, 10% animals. I'm not saying that, because a vegan diet can be a very unhealthy diet. I'm talking about eating fruits and vegetables, and that should be the mainstay of any vegan diet if you want to be healthy. Yes?
Can you recommend a B12 supplement?
The question is, can you recommend a B12 supplement? Yeah, so I've done a lot of research on B12 supplements, and let's see, the one that I would recommend, it's a liquid supplement. Let me see if I can think of the name. No, it's not. Yeah, I don't like that one though. No, that's not it. It's a company out of Utah. Let's see. What? No, it's not Premier. Yeah, I have it at home, and I do have videos on it. So if you go to my OK Raw YouTube channel, and I think if you look up the term search supplements, you'll see a video where I went to a health food store in Las Vegas, and in that video I hold up the B12 supplement. It's in a spray bottle, and the reason why I like it is, number one, it has like the least amount of additives as possible, because I don't want additives. I don't want to take like all this erythritol and all these other flavoring agents in my B12. I just want the B12. And number two, it has 3 different types of B12. It has cyanocobalamin, methylcobalamin, and hydroxycobalamin. And the problem is some people don't have the right genes to convert certain types of B12 into the active form. So that's why I take that style.
What about B12 shots?
B12 shots? I don't know about the B12 shots. I researched that, and all I know is that I don't really like to take any shots because I'm not concerned about them injecting me with a straight B12, but the problem is, what else are they putting in that B12 shot as a stabilizer? And that's why I don't like necessarily vaccinations either. There's some new technologies for B12. Let's see. One is an inhaler, actually, that I haven't got to try yet. I just ordered it. You could inhale it. I don't know how that works. The other one is a B12 patch, which I use the B12 patch. I don't know if it's effective or not, but I'm using all these things just to make sure that I'm B12 sufficient because it is so important.
Is it called Salt Lake Supplements?
No. Yeah. All right, let's see. So the question is, do I take vitamin D3? So the answer is yes. So vitamin D is another very important nutrient to get. You guys all live in South Florida. And so if you guys get enough sun, you guys may be making enough vitamin D. Even with my gardening and gardening with my shirt off, my vitamin D levels were not sufficient. So I also do take a vitamin D supplement. There's also other ways to get vitamin D. A better way than taking a supplement, in my opinion, is getting a light box. So you can get a light box. And this puts out the infrared rays so your body could make your own vitamin D instead of taking a supplement, because I try to like not take supplements if I can. And they also have a vitamin D cream that you could rub on that I just got, that you could rub on and supposedly absorb the vitamin D through your skin instead of taking it orally in the back.
So the rock dust, is that just the lava rocks crushed up? Like what's the source of the lava dust?
Sure, so the question is the rock dust, what's the source of the rocks? So there's many different rocks. Any crushed rock could technically be a rock dust. You could go down to your local rock and stone quarry if you have one, and they're crushing up different rocks. And basically, a different style, whether it's a basalt rock, an igneous rock, volcanic rock, or a glacial rock, will have different levels and spectrums of different minerals. So the ones that have been identified as some of the most nutritious are the basalt style rocks, also the more Morellinite clays. That's the azomite product, is actually a clay, not technically a rock. And then also the basalt and volcanic. So those are the best kinds of rock dust to apply. A lot of times you could get rock dust for free at a local stone quarry. I like to get the horticulture grade rock dust that have assays on it, so you can actually see the different kinds of trace minerals that are in there. Many of them, like the azomite, is really rich in silica, which is another essential nutrient for the plants, but also for us.
And if you Google it, anywhere in the country, get it shipped free for $40 for 44 pounds.
Right, yeah, so there's places like Rock Dust Local online. So if you go to Growing Your Greens, I have many videos on rock dust. I've interviewed many rock dust experts, actually. So you could probably learn a lot more from those videos. Any other questions? Yes, in the front.
It's not really a question, but it's actually, I got probiotics that are soil-based.
Sure.
And I noticed from day one a huge difference. They're called prescripticis. And just studying probiotics and how the gut is related to anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorders, that it's actually even more important than your mind. And today I was talking to a lady who works with autistic kids, and it said the same thing because they have a lot of digestive issues. And I was very fascinated by that, and it worked very, very well.
Right, yeah, no, I'd agree. So yeah, her comment was, besides just the standard probiotics, there's also soil-based organisms, SBOs, and in the health food industry, there's a little bit of controversy if soil-based organisms are good or bad. Some probiotics are transient, meaning they won't colonize within you, and they'll actually just move right through you and kind of do their job. So kind of then, in some cases, you get actually hooked on taking these probiotics, because if you stop taking them, you're going to stop getting the benefits, right? And I think all probiotics are good, whether they're soil-based or not. I try to just take a little bit of each, and just like I throw a lot of different microbes in my soil, and they're going to figure out which ones are going to outcompete whoever, and they're going to do whatever, and they're going to end up the right ones in my body. So, yeah, thank you.
In Vermont, there's an old saying, in order to be healthy, you have to eat a peck of dirt a year. I've heard that since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's probably to eat healthy dirt. That's not contaminated with a Roundup or anything else that's bad. But yeah, that's another whole thing. Yeah, eating dirt. I don't have any videos on that yet.
It's on your food. That's what they're getting at.
Right.
It's on your food.
All right. Any other questions?
How do you spell katuk?
K-A-T-U-K, I believe. But if you go to Echo, just ask them for katuk. Or here in the South, sometimes they pronounce it K-tac.
And is asparagus is asparagus a perennial?
Yeah, so asparagus is a plant you would plant once, and then in the springtime, they make the little asparagus shoots that you would then cut off and eat, and then it would actually stay in place. It would grow year-round, and instead of the shoots, you'd get this nice big asparagus fern. So most of the year, actually, it's a nice fern. You're not going to eat it. Then at the end of the winter time, you would cut it down, and then next spring, it would actually just start shooting up again.
I chew on the leaves. I hope it's okay.
Yeah, so you could actually, chewing on asparagus fern leaves is totally fine. It's just a lot of fiber, and there's a lot of nutrition. I will warn you, though, against eating the asparagus fruit pods. There's research that says it has been toxic. I've taken the fruit pods. They're nice and actually orange things. I've taken them and eaten them and then spit out the seeds, a few of them without any ill effects. I'm still here, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend eating any large quantity of those. You had a question over here?
Hey, John.
Hi.
Welcome back. Do you know Andy Firk back there? Do you know that guy? Okay, he has an annual forage fest
Sure.
And he's got about an hour away a food forest with tons of heirloom fruit trees. And he also has plant exchanges.
I've
And do
written
you
that
have
info for
do
you.
you
I'll
have
keep it
Katuk?
simple.
Okay, great.
Do you have Katuk there? How do you spell
Sure
it?
he does.
And he's also writing the book on Florida wild edibles.
Sure. No, I'm familiar with Andy and his work. He's legendary.
Okay.
You might be interested in, we're doing Yam Fest again at Hart, which is a perennial vegetable festival in
Oh,
the
cool.
spring, so you might like that.
All right. Yeah, we'll talk afterwards for
So a
sure.
little closer than Echo Resource is what I'm saying.
Oh, sure. Oh, so he sells plants and everything too.
They have the exchanges and like even free trade of all that stuff.
Oh, good. So if you want to get all the plants that I talked about for free, talk to Andy afterwards. Yes.
Based on everything you said about your soil, the way you cultivate it, compost, and rock dust and so forth, I can't imagine that you see any place for hydroponic, like the tower gardens, hydroponic. Is there any place for those, or are they just so inferior to what you're doing that?
Sure. So the question is the question boils down to, are hydroponics inferior to growing what I'm growing, the way I'm growing, like with nature? Because hydroponics, once again, it's a man-made system for the most part, because you're most of the time putting in synthetic nutrients. Because if you try to put in organic nutrients, they're going to basically promote algae growth and promote too much bacteria growth, and your system could get totally out of whack. So the thing is, I would say is, I would definitely say there are applications for hydroponics, and there are, of course, better or worse ways to do hydroponics. So another thing in my life that I've tried to get away from is this whole divergent way of thinking. Right, wrong, good, bad. I mean, I was driving down the freeway today, 80 miles an hour. The speed limit's 70, but some guys are passing me up, So it's like, am I illegal? Well, that guy's more illegal than I am, so hopefully he gets a ticket. But yeah, I was still breaking the law. But yeah, like in our culture, we're taught these things like vegan diet is right, non-vegan, you're bad, man. And some vegans get really militant about this stuff, right? And once again, that kind of goes back to like my whole philosophy of like, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's about, I like to try to teach good, better, best, right? If growing a hydroponics garden because you have limited space and you don't have acreage or you can't even have any raised beds, and you could have a tower garden on your patio and otherwise you're not growing food, that's great application of hydroponics. But now at that point, especially with the tower garden, how can you make that better? And one of the easy ways to make that better is to pick up some of the ocean solution product, so that at least now, instead of just feeding your plants the small limited range of minerals that are in the ocean solution or in the tower garden nutrients, now you're at least feeding 90 trace minerals, and that's definitely better. But there's a whole like soil microbe interaction that happens that is, I mean, we know really not much about soil. We know that if we pick up a tablespoon, there's more life in a tablespoon of soil than people on the earth, or even life on the earth. I don't know, some crazy number. And all these things interact in different ways that man does not even know how it works to create different kinds of phytonutrients and phytochemicals and basically plant metabolites. I mean, did you know that a tomato, for example, will make up to 300 different plant metabolites? These are the vitamins, the minerals, the lycopene, and all these other, things in the tomato. And if the tomato doesn't have all the different things it needs, including bacteria and who knows, the fungi and who knows what, maybe it's not going to metabolize all these nutrients in higher amounts. And I mean, I could taste this when I taste food, and that's why I like the Brix meter, because at least that gives you an easy way to measure it and to see this. So I would encourage, if you are growing hydroponics, then grow Brix hydroponics. And I haven't studied that, but one of the easy ways would be to add the trace minerals, and that would definitely get it up higher. But I would personally rather grow in soil. I mean, and here's the other reason. Growing in soil is a lot easier. Nature is auto-balancing, right? When we're trying to subvert nature and do hydroponics, you have to check your pH. You have to balance that up and down. I mean, you have to, you're creating all these excess salts that then you need to wash all that water out of your system, put it down the drain, which then, is not good. And that's why, like, the Gulf of Mexico is, like, all messed up, because all these synthetic chemical fertilizers are running down the drain. I think a better solution than hydroponics would be aquaponics. I mean, that's a step in the right direction, because that's using more organic matter. They even have this thing called pee-ponics now. But you can imagine what the fertilizer is for that. But yeah, actually our pee is one of the best fertilizers on earth, believe it or not. What we put out, we could grow enough food with just our pee. but people that get weird about that stuff. But I try to pee on my trees as much as possible. I'm not peeing on my lettuce or nothing, but and because we're flushing clean, we're using clean water to flush our pee down the toilet, man. You should just go in your yard. So they say why? So the thing is, like, unfortunately, so the question is, why don't you put tomatoes in the refrigerator? It ruins them. I don't know the exact science on that, but here's what I'll say. You know, nature has created systems, and in nature, certain plants like to live in certain temperature zones. So tomatoes, they don't like when it gets cold. When tomatoes freeze, that's when you know your tomatoes are done for the season. If you lived up north, I mean, here you barely get freezes. And the other thing that I think is a tragedy these days is that if you go to the grocery store to buy, vegetables, all the vegetables that you're seeing at the grocery store are vegetables that would grow well in the wintertime. Why is that? Because if they could grow in the winter, they could handle the cold, and when they get the cold, their respiration slows down, so they're going to stay fresher longer, so then they can be shipped from California. You're rarely ever going to find tropical, perennial, edible vegetables, greens that have been cut in your store, because I'll tell you, you get katuk, you cut it, I mean, I swear, within like 30 minutes, it's wilted, man. You wouldn't want to buy that stuff. And so, we've kind of like, we use nature how we want it. We could grow cold, hardy stuff and ship it across country, and then you could buy that. And consequently, now you could only buy a small percentage of the massive amount of different fruits and vegetables that are available, because these are the ones that handle the shipment, handle the cold. And I would try to, that's why I don't like to harvest my food until I'm going to eat it. I go out to my garden, I pick it, I take it inside, I eat it. That way I'm maximizing nutrition, because people don't understand, once you harvest something and you, lock in the freshness by hydro-cooling it and then ship it, there's reliable declines in nutrition. Not to say that all the stuff you buy at the stores, doesn't have any nutrition in it. There could be a lot more nutrition in it. And especially once they start processing foods, the nutrition goes down. And when food doesn't taste as good, then also that means there's lower nutrition in there, because they correspond or relate.
Green bags, are those good to use or not?
The green bags, are they good to use? So I don't know, it depends on the green bags. So some of the green bags may absorb the ethylene gas, which causes fruit to ripen prematurely. In my climate in Las Vegas, I could leave my tomatoes out easily for a month out of the fridge. And, they're not going to really, at some point they're going to go bad. But, plants produce wax. They produce wax. If you look at sugarcane, they'll have this white powder coating on it, which is a wax. It produces wax to protect itself from, the elements. And so, we've taken this to the extent of even waxing produce. Like if you buy conventional produce, it's been waxed, sometimes with beeswax, so that wouldn't be vegan, or wax made from petrochemicals, unfortunately, so that it'll last longer. But plants do this naturally and will have a wax coating on it. And actually, even with the sugarcane wax, I was researching that recently, they've done research that there's actually health benefits to the sugarcane wax. And they extract the wax and then they feed it to you, and then it will lower your blood pressure or something crazy. I don't know. But the thing is, we don't want that sugarcane wax in the tablet. We just want to juice the sugarcane, get some of that wax in the juice you're drinking, and drink it. And now you got those nutrients. So, I would just recommend, if you don't harvest your stuff till you're going to eat it, if you're still buying produce, then, try to go to the store more regularly, try to shop at your farmer's market more regularly, and then try to buy a bunch of produce and keep it for a while until you eat it, for higher levels of nutrients. Yes, in the back.
Is it better to buy frozen vegetables rather than fresh?
So that's the classic question. Is it better to buy frozen vegetables than fresh? So that just depends, right? It depends on how the vegetables were grown, what's the nutrition in the vegetables before it was frozen or fresh, and how long after, So if it's like fresh from your farmer's market, the guy's doing rock dust and all this stuff, fresh is probably better than frozen, and then you're going to take it home and eat it. And he harvested it that morning. Now, fresh stuff from California versus frozen, they always say that like frozen stuff is harvested at the peak. And I've surely got frozen fruits and things before that are definitely not picked at the peak because they taste like crap. I'm not going to say every grower's like that, but I think it could vary. I think any way you could get more fresh fruits and vegetables in you, even if they're frozen, that's definitely better than canned stuff, right? And I don't want to get into that debate. I've seen studies that say the frozen is better, and some studies the fresh are better. I can't really give you I mean, once again, we want that divergent answer, you know, or divergent, we want that convergent answer instead of that divergent answer, you know. So it's not, I mean, I would say grow your vegetables yourself in nutrient-rich soil, harvest it right before you're going to use it. That's the best. Down from that, you know, do the best you can.
But you can't eat raw anyway.
What?
You can't eat the frozen one raw anyway.
You can't eat what raw?
Raw, frozen.
The frozen, okay, so here's the thing. So technically frozen fruits are raw because they haven't been heat processed, but they have been, you know, cold, you know, chilled. But the vegetables have been blanched before they freeze them. Not to say that frozen vegetables are worthless, you know. I think there's still plenty of good nutrients in there. And, you know, I have been known to eat some frozen vegetables, and even some raw food restaurants will, you know, use thawed out vegetables in their food preparation. So, I mean, I think being raw or not raw is maybe not the right terminology to look at, because there's plenty, I've eaten at some raw food restaurants this trip out here that I haven't felt so well at, because those raw foods, they would include olive oil, and they would include, you know, salt, and they would include lots of nuts and seeds. And to me, that's not, I mean, those are, well, some of those are healthy, like the nuts and seeds are healthy because they're whole foods, but even though the olive oil is raw, I still wouldn't call raw olive oil a health food. So we really just want to eat whole food, fruit and vegetable dominated diet with other whole plant foods in the least processed method as possible. And yeah, juicing, it's a process, you know, but I'm doing it at my home with my garden fresh produce, so it's the least processing versus buying a pasteurized, packaged, bottled juice that has a lot more processing. But hey, a packaged, bottled, 100% juice, not from concentrate, is still healthier than a Coke. And that's what just do the best you can. And it's not good to, you know, get in all these little, this is better than that. Like, they're all good. Fruits and vegetables are still all good.
When you go to the grocery store and you buy groceries at the store, and you take them home, you want to clean them, make sure they're clean, what's the best way to clean them? Like sanitize them? My friend, she puts vinegar and water to clean them. I don't know if more than just water is necessary, or...
Yeah, so the question is, how do you clean your produce once you get it home? And there's actually been research on this, and I think the research showed that, I think it was like adding, washing things in salt water, I think, was one of the best ways. You could use vinegar and all this stuff, but here's the thing, like, the question is, why are you washing it in the first place? Like, out in nature, we would never wash anything. I mean, these days we have acid rain, we have chemtrails, and I definitely want to wash the chemicals off, but there's good and bad bacteria on the plants, right? In nature, we would eat it all. And if we had enough beneficial bacteria, in my opinion, we would be able to fight off the bad bacteria, and that's one of the reasons why people may be washing off the produce is the bad bacteria. But when we're washing the bad bacteria, we're also washing the good bacteria. So we've had this whole germophobic mentality, and it's been shown that, like, kids that are raised playing in the dirt, going on the carpet, actually have a stronger immune system than kids that have hand sanitizer and been sterilized their whole life. So, I mean, we want some of the bacteria, but it's also good to be discerning about this as well. You know, I'd rather trust, you know, a local farmer that was honest and with me and that was growing organically, that didn't spray his stuff, and I might not wash that stuff. Meanwhile, my girlfriend, she just basically doesn't wash anything, which kind of freaks me out a little bit because I'm a little bit of germophobic, and you know, if it's from my garden and it's pretty clean, I wipe the bugs off, I'll just eat it as is, you know. But yeah, probably just using the salt. They have different sprays, they may or may not work. I mean, one of the cool technologies besides the salt that you may want to look into is this ultrasonic cleaners. So they basically ozonate the water, and then they vibrate at an ultrasonic frequency, and it's like they have these for jewelry cleaners, so you can put your ring in there, and the ring with just water, and this ultrasonic cleaner will vibrate or something off all the tarnish on your rings. So you can imagine this also does that to the fruits, and furthermore, the FDA has approved ozone cleaning or sanitizing of vegetables for restaurants. So that's been a proven technology that will kill the bacteria. So that'd be another way if you want to spend a bunch of money and the machine actually worked. Any other questions today?
Are you ready?
Oh, I want to.
Yes, sure.
Going back to the hydroponic and growing in soil.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't the Earth's energy field have something to do with the growing?
Good point. So the question is, going back to the hydroponics in the earth, growing in the soil, doesn't the earth's energy have to do with growing? And I would say absolutely yes. I use a grounding mat when I'm working on the computer, so I have like this mat underneath my keyboard, so my palms are resting on a grounding mat. I also have a grounding sheet that grounds me, and I've seen studies where they actually grow things in pots and containers not in contact with the soil, and they grow things even if it's in a pot with the bottom cut open, touching the soil, and those plants will grow better than without. So I mean, once again, when we're trying to subvert nature's systems, that may have a negative effect. So if you're going to grow in hydroponics, then minimally, and this is only the grounding aspect, shove a rebar in the dirt and run a wire to it into your water, which will at least ground the system, which will be, I don't know, I mean, that could be hocus pocus, but the worst case is you're out of a few dollars for buying some rebar and bending it to make it, and make sure, I'd probably use some stainless steel that doesn't rust. But, and then there's all these different magnetic fields in the earth, and I also sleep on a magnetic bed. And so I'm supposed to heal faster and all these other crazy things. And whether that works or not, I mean, the earth is magnetic. We're losing some of the magnetism. I mean, you can get really deep into this stuff, and I've looked into a lot of these things. And my whole philosophy is if it's probably not going to hurt me, then I'm going to try it, and it may be actually beneficial.
Have you tried the Organite?
Have I tried No, I haven't tried Organite.
What's the next step?
Yeah, next step, right. All right, any last questions?
You writing a book?
Am I writing a book? Yes, good question. So I put all my content up online for free, and that's something that's very important to me, is I believe in an open source community and an open source model for information. And as much as I know people need to make a living and sell books and sell information, by keeping trade secrets and keeping all these things like the earth and people on the earth are not going to really be able to move forward. So that's why I make all my videos free and available for everybody with all my information without having to, you don't have to buy my book. That being said, I will be coming out with a recipe book that'll also have half the book will be recipes and the other half hopefully will be talking about my story more and some of the personal things that I do in my life as well as my gardening philosophies. And my girlfriend is currently working on the recipe portion of the book. And hopefully that'll be out, hopefully next year. We'll see.
Will it be all raw or some cooked?
So the recipe book will be all raw recipes because that's what I eat. She eats cooked foods, but I only eat raw foods, and I grow foods that can be eaten in their raw, natural state. And as much as nowadays I know there's some benefits to cooked foods, I still eat raw. And I have been increasing foods, because if because of your dogma, whether that's a vegan dogma or a raw dogma or whatever dogma you have is limiting you, then I think that's a bad thing. So, one of the things that I believe my raw food beliefs may be limiting me about is limiting my bean consumption, which I've identified as a really healthy food. So I don't want to cook beans and eat them, but what I will do instead is I will cook the beans and then ferment them. So the natto that I eat is cooked soybeans, but then it's fermented. So then I consider it a live food instead of a raw food. And people that teach about live foods will say live foods are even better than raw foods. And so the other thing I just recently bought that I haven't gotten yet is they're making a Tempeh Maker. So most tempeh you would buy at the grocery store, at the health food store, that's been pasteurized. Because if it was still alive, it would turn black and moldy and look bad and you would never want to eat it. So I just got a Tempeh Maker that does not have a mandatory pasteurization step, so then I could cook my beans, any kind of beans, ferment them, and then actually it's going to make additional metabolites and different nutrients after it's fermented, and then eat that fresh to eat my beans plus the new nutrients that the bacteria is making. So that's how I'm expanding my raw food diet and still kind of remaining within my crazy constraints that I have for all these years.
John, how do you cook the soybeans for the fermentation?
So I cook the soybeans. Actually, I got this thing called the Instapot, which I recommend every vegan or non-vegan to purchase. It's a pressure cooker, so it cooks things faster. It keeps all the nutrients and liquids inside the container. So in the case of if you're cooking greens to eat, aside from cooking toxic greens like the chaya, you could actually, if you're just cooking like kale, you could drink the water, which I would recommend because that's where a lot of the nutrients are being leached out from. And use purified water to make it and then drink that water as the water that you're going to drink the next day. So yeah, the Instapot, it's an amazing cooking appliance tool, and I recommend only the Instapot because it's a pressure cooker with a stainless steel inside. Most of them have this Teflon coated crap that I don't recommend. And so the main reason why I bought it is to make the natto and actually to cook food for my dog, which is he's on a high plant-based diet, even though he's not vegan. A high nutrient-dense plant-based diet. So like, you know, I like to cook him yellow yams, and he eats beans and rice as majority of his calories, and he gets some meat too sometimes.
So do you cook at a very low temperature for a long time, or what do you do?
So the pressure cooker basically just cooks at whatever temperature it's preset to.
Like for your soybeans, what do you do?
Yeah, so that's just at whatever the half hour, you just press the bean button and it just does it.
Okay.
So when it's under pressure, it cooks it for a shorter time, but it's, you know, I mean, there's steam in there, so it's at a hot temperature.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm killing whatever, but then I ferment it and then it brings some stuff back. But also, you mean, some things do need to be heat processed to break down some of the anti-nutrients. So another exception that I've had recently too is mushrooms. So mushrooms is another food that I've identified as a very nutritious plant that's anti-cancer, anti-angiogenesis, that have an inhibition, which is basically when cancer starts to grow, it's anti-cancer. So, but the problem with mushrooms is if you eat them raw, there's things like agaritine and other toxins in there that you can't get rid of unless you heat process them. Unless they're maybe shiitakes, which is the only mushroom you should probably be eating raw, otherwise they're kind of anti-nutrients. So I take actually a mushroom powder with 14 different mushrooms in there that's already been heat processed, and then I just put the mushroom powder, like a teaspoon or two every night, into my smoothie, or into my soup base, or into my salad dressings, and into blended salads I make.
Well, what about mushroom tea and stuff? You know, they sell reishi and shiitake and cordyceps.
Yeah, so I mean, my opinions of tea in general and mushroom tea, whatever kind of tea you're making, you're putting in the active ingredient in there and you're leaching out in water whatever comes out. I would much rather, provided you could eat the item, eat the whole item itself. So, you know, I take matcha tea powder, which is another very high nutrient food, and just add it to my smoothies. And normally they would just put tea leaves in and just whatever the nutrients come out in the water, but then you're throwing away your tea bag, which has a lot more nutrients actually than what's in the tea water. So I try to get the whole plant, you know, components instead of just, you know, the water that's been extracted. Yes?
I was hearing you say that you shouldn't eat cooked shiitakes.
No, raw shiitakes are probably the only mushroom you could eat raw. From my
You can, but okay.
that you can eat raw.
Yeah. Well, that would probably
Portobellos or shouldn't be eaten raw. Many raw food restaurants serve them. I mean, a few is not going to be the worst thing for you, but it's not necessarily the best thing for you either. And people use raw button mushrooms on their salads all the time, and you know, optimally that's not the best to do from my research. And I talked to like Paul Stamens, so, and he's the mushroom guy.
What about marinated?
Marinated is not really going to do it, so you need to heat process them.
Even acid, like lemon and acid cooked?
No, it's not going to do it.
I was saying the same thing, like if you take your mushroom like kale, you know, you can be marinated with vinegar or lemon or something like this, and then that changes the sort of.
Yeah, that's not going to break down some of the toxins in the mushrooms.
Also, mushrooms have, in their cell walls, they're more related to animals than the plants. They're in their own kingdom, so they're not plants. But their cell walls are composed of polysaccharides and also
lignans,
crab shells and such.
Oh, the chitin.
The chitin.
So that needs to get broken
break
down.
Open those cell walls,
right.
The lysis cell walls. So if you don't cook a mushroom, you're basically wasting your time. It'll be eatable but not digestible.
Right. So that's why I get a cooked mushroom powder that's already in a powder. So it's cooked and then broken down. Then I just add that powder into my food for the benefits. Yes.
Chlorella powder at all?
The question is, do I use Chlorella powder or Spirulina? And the answer is yes. You know, once again, I don't want to limit my diet. Oh, those are algae or filter feeders. They're not good for us. You know, I think any food, you know, in moderation, not like it's my favorite food. I eat Chlorella each and every day because, you know, too much of any good thing could be a bad thing. Even water you could choke on. But I like to include, you know, these kind of things regularly in my diet, you know, when I'm making a green smoothie. So like my favorite green smoothies like coconut water, frozen bananas, greens from my garden, in addition to different powders I'll put in, including Chlorella, Spirulina, and other ones. Yeah, the blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. Yeah, all different kinds. And then, I use wheatgrass powders and barley grass powders, and the matcha tea powder, all different kinds of things go in. And just a little bit of everything.
What about moringa leaf powder?
Yeah, so moringa leaf powder, yes, I've made my own, and that's another good powder. I prefer to eat it fresh, but the taste is still pretty objectionable to me. I've had some moringa that actually tastes good, but most of it is not the best tasting stuff. And I've done, did I do moringa juice? I think I did moringa. I did do moringa leaf shots in one of my videos. That was some strong stuff.
The Tempeh Maker, you could use black beans or kidney beans or anything?
Yes, any kind of beans, yes. That's not quite out yet. I got on a Kickstarter deal, and if you buy the low-end one, which is the cheap model, they have a mandatory pasteurization step that cannot be avoided, which I told the guy, I'm like, dude, you need to take that out. It needs to be an option. So you could avoid it by actually pulling your stuff out to avoid the pasteurization step, but in the higher-end model made for chefs, you could actually just turn that pasteurization step off, because I don't want it pasteurized. And then, of course, there's ways to make tempeh without a tempeh maker. It's basically about regulating the temperature that the ferment is happening at. So people use like coolers with heating elements and all these things to keep the temperature regulated. You could look that up online. But I don't have time to do all that stuff.
Did you say the name of that tempeh maker?
Oh yeah, just if you Google just Tempeh Maker, I think it's called Tempeh Sure, I think is the name of it. But if you just Google Tempeh Maker, it's like all stainless steel.
You need tempeh spores. I keep them.
Oh, so he probably makes his tempeh without a tempeh maker. That's a better.
But I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's really new. Because I'm like, I don't want to be a tempeh master and do all that. I just want to put the stuff in and have it. I got too many other things to do. That's cool though. Maybe you should have a class on how to make tempeh, man.
Well, I just put a paper up on the table on mushroom classes that I do as part of a Gulf Coast mushrooms. It's called. Grow all kinds of edibles.
Cool.
And some carry spores, tempeh, and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Pretty cheap, it's like $1, like a pound of tempeh starter.
Cool. Yeah, you guys got some great resources. I wish I could. If I had a local source of tempeh, I don't think I'd make it. I got too many other projects. Yes.
What's the community like? What's the gardening community like in Las Vegas? I mean, because you travel around the world, how does it stack up?
The question is, what's the gardening community in Las Vegas? I think in one word, it's lacking.
Desert?
Yeah, I mean, people think it's a desert. I mean, most people are not aware of how important food is, and most people just still, I mean, they got like buffets, endless buffets for cheap in Vegas, and it's the worst food.
And is the Las Vegas Police Department still harassing you, or have they?
Yeah. Yeah, no, they haven't come around recently, and yeah, I mean, well, luckily in Nevada now they've legalized recreational cannabis. That starts the first of the year. The negative thing about that is that if you live within 25 miles of a place that's selling the recreational cannabis, you can't grow it. So then that's going to kind of maybe make me get a medicinal cannabis card in Las Vegas, which is harder to get than California because you got to have certain diseases. But then the thing with that is if you live within 25 miles of a dispensary, you can't grow it unless you grow a strain that's not available at the dispensary. So for me, that's no problem. There's so many different strains. I'm going to grow high CBD strains that most dispensaries aren't going to carry anyways because people want to get high off the crap. So, and I don't want to get high.
And you're growing for juicing?
Yeah, so like I would grow it for juicing and just eating. I like to just eat the leaves. And there's people have been really brainwashed with how bad cannabis is because it gets you high. And that's absolutely true. That's one aspect of the plant. But there's whole other aspects where the government actually owns 2 patents on, well, one is on the neuroprotective effects of the cannabis, and I forget what the other one is actually on. So the government at the same time holds patents on this plant for its medicinal benefits, and on the other hand, the DEA says there's no medical benefits to this plant.
Might be an antioxidant, the other patent.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyways, it's a very beneficial plant, and I wish everybody had access to it if they wanted to use it, however they want to use it. That's just my opinion on that. Any last final questions? All right, cool, thank you. So what do you guys think? You guys made it through the full 2 hours. Congratulations. You are probably like one of the top 1% of all my viewers out there that made it to the end. I want to thank you guys for watching the end. I mean, I don't get anything special for you guys watching to the end, except just, you know, the knowing that my videos and the time I take to make my videos are making a difference out there, right? And I hope you guys learned something from watching that video. You know, I tried to share a lot of different things that I've learned along my journey all in one spot. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Also, be sure to, you know, post any comments or questions down below. I'll try to take a look at those and answer them if I'm able. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 400 episodes on this channel teach you guys all aspects on how to eat more fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. And finally, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming content. I'm coming out about every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'm going to show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel that can improve your life. And finally, share this video with somebody else that you want to start eating healthier, somebody that already eats raw foods and maybe they could dial in their diet more, somebody that you want to get into gardening and growing food. You know, then they'll also go along with me on my journey and sharing my story on why I'm really so passionate about this stuff, and hopefully it inspired some passion within you guys as well. In any case, with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best. Hey, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. I'm here all the way in Katy, Texas. It's outside Houston, if you don't know where Katy's at. And the reason why I'm here today is because I'm going to do a raw food recipe.